Wonderful.
That's one of our better ones.
It has to be. So now, if I've done this correctly, we are recording on Audacity, all of us, right? And now I'm going to unmute the stream, and we're going to see if we are going out live.
Oh, this is exciting.
So this is where the technology potentially
I heard Jason.
is us
I heard
live
Chad.
on air. Okay, so it's working.
I heard me.
Okay, we need to hear Yanko.
Yeah, I'm talking now too, so.
I heard Yanko.
So everyone's working is what you're saying, Rush?
Yeah, everything's working.
It's exactly how we needed it to be, wasn't?
Yeah.
It seemed like it being me, there should have been more technical issues.
I think the images in the background are moving a bit too quickly, Chad. It's like every 2 seconds it's swapping image.
Okay, so that would be the biggest critique you'd have right now of what's currently going out.
It's going to get old real quick.
Okay. All right. Let me see if I can adjust the time between the slides. What would you recommend?
Like a couple of minutes.
What are the slides that we have going?
Yeah, can you maybe surmise the slides for everybody,
I don't know
Rush?
what I'm looking at. They're very weird looking.
They're cool, man.
They are kind of cool.
Is it us? Is it the artwork?
Don't like
of
this
us?
one. Don't like this one. I don't even know who's in this picture.
Well, these were just
Rude, of course.
You know, I gave a very wide scope. The scope was it needs to say, talk, and counter somewhere, and it can be of anything.
I think the abstract ones are very cool. Very, very cool.
Well, now it's not going to change for an unknown amount of time because you told me that it was changing too fast. So now I've just set like a random number because it's in milliseconds, and that's where we're at.
Here's a question: Have we done the special talking counter episode is live on stream now? Have we made that tweet? Have we made that announcement to the world?
Yanko made it. Yanko made a tweet. I just retweeted the tweet.
Okay.
And I made a reminder tweet 2 hours ago or something like that.
Oh my God, you guys are so on top of things these days.
Yeah, well, we don't all have a little human being to look after,
It's the
Jason.
new
I don't
me,
think
Jason.
I don't think I've ever set a reminder like a scheduled tweet. I don't think I've ever done it in my life.
Oh, I don't think Yanko made a Yanko, you didn't make a schedule.
No.
Oh, you just made a reminder on your phone or something?
No, Jason.
What is Jason doing right
now?
now?
It's just 2 p.m. and we're doing it in 2 hours. And I just, okay, I'll just remind the people from yesterday, quote tweet it, say, hey, reminder, this is in 2 hours. You don't need a fucking program for that. It's just your brain working at minimum capacity.
I got exactly what you meant, Yanko. Rush, I want you to contribute early
Hello?
here. That way,
Just getting a
the more you
report that
contribute early-
apparently maybe Jason too loud. Maybe.
Okay,
Maybe.
but that's only a TeamSpeak issue.
Maybe. Yeah, that's true actually. Yeah.
Crank me down
that's
in
potentially-
TeamSpeak. Crank me down.
Yeah, I can just,
maybe you should do that,
I can turn it down.
I'm just
That's
keeping
not a
an eye on
problem.
all the tech that's going on right here. There's a lot of cables.
Yeah. Okay. So you're what are you, the IT specialist? I don't understand your role in all of this.
yeah.
Then.
Well,
It's taking Yanko's job.
We appreciate you, Russian.
Thank you.
Okay, so what we should have on the screen right now, and that's why Rush is here. Not the reason we're doing this live, but I guess the reason that we're doing it now, like we've just kind of compiled a bunch of things. We can co-stream the Dallas matches, right? And Cloud9 just lost to Astralis in a 3-mapper right there on overpass the third map. It was, the internet's gone wild over this one. And now they have to play Cloud9, OG for the last spot for Dallas at some point soon. So this is all meant to be live on the screen right now and not the artwork. The artwork will have to replace what was meant to be on the screen.
So it's a placeholder.
Yeah, precisely. And now that match, because of the nature of the previous game, has literally finished within the last 20 minutes or so. We have 45 minutes to wait until the next
45.
game. 45.
I'm gone in 3 minutes, bro.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to see if you had a segment, if you wanted to bring Get Animated back.
Kind of. Well, not fully Get Animated. There has been some more advancements, I would say, in the anime culture. I am going to post a little link down here. Hopefully it works for you guys. But there is a point shop on Steam. I don't know if you guys have ever looked at this. But there is a lot of very interesting anime moving profile pictures you can have on Steam.
That's true. You guys, Yanko and Jason, you may have noticed my anime profile picture in recent times.
And I even had to open it. And I was going to ask you, is that from the game that you posted?
I don't know where this is from, but I do know it's from the point store.
I've looked at some of these games that these are from, and they are from those types of games. I will say that much.
So this is literally Get Animated.
Pretty much, yeah. Like, so if you all want to pick one out today, I mean, look, here's my profile for some inspiration. I'm not a huge fan of the moving sides because it's a little bit too much, but I mean, you gotta get animated, you know.
So when you do this, so I opened your page, Rushley.
Yes.
So these two that are on the side, do they
Yes.
come on automatically when you change your avatar?
No, that's somewhere else in the point shop. There is the side backgrounds basically.
I have that. So if you find my name right on Steam Friends right now and you hover over my name, it'll open that card that comes up behind the name.
That is a mini profile. I just want to explain this real quick.
I've got a matching mini profile and avatar combination.
There are technically two profiles. You have your main profile when you click on it and it's big, and then you have a mini profile, and you can even have like your own little mini profile background.
But why does your avatar have her tongue out, Chad?
I don't know. I think it's provocative, Yanko. I think it just really gets
It is
the
a little
people
bit
going.
provocative. That's what I'm asking. I feel provoked.
Yeah, and I think it's meant to elicit that response here, which makes some people feel a little bit uneasy about life. But when basically, and the reason that this happened is because we were getting into some Counter-Strike 2 matches and we wanted to perform to our absolute best. So as a collective, we all assumed the role of anime profile picture users and really delved down that rabbit hole. That's why we do find ourselves here today.
Do you find that the anime profile picture helps you frag a little bit more?
We find that what it does is it will irritate
the confidence
and antagonize the opponent, which by virtue boosts your confidence because you know they're not completely focused on the one true goal of
the game
headshot.
at hand. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, no one's mentioned it when we played against people. Not one person has mentioned it, which is kind of sad. But I'd like to think it's more of an internal struggle, you know.
Well, for us or the opponent?
For the opponent.
Okay. Yeah. No. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. It's something that they really have to wrangle, to wrestle, because you guys have known, Yank, I'm sure you've been out there playing a late night facer and you've rolled across, these 5 anime profile pictures from cartoons you never knew existed, and you're mad before you even started.
Bro, I mean, when I was coaching still and we were playing Gambit Youngsters, aka Cloud9, like they would not only have the 5 anime profile pictures, like their names would be just like, I just want to die and all that sort of.
Sounds like a CS player, yeah.
It's like, wow, that's really dark considering they're only 13 at the time or whatever it is. So yeah, I can see where you get it from. Then you also have Monacy coming in as Yellow Flash and all of that stuff. So
people are loving it. That's all the internet can really talk about these days.
I see all of these are like 3,000, 2,000. I have 200,000 points.
Yeah, I don't know where these points come from, but same, Yanko.
Am I
we
like
all
rich,
are loaded
or
on
is that
points.
like everyone has a lot of points?
I think because we have like Steam accounts that have been around for a long time, and is it something to do with the cards as well? Of
it
how
is.
you have
Yeah,
points?
you
a lot
can
of cards.
trash them. You can trash them for gems, which I don't know if gems is different to points. I honestly, it is kind of ridiculous the level of like
gems, fan.
Yeah,
So-
well, I don't know.
Fucking gems.
I don't know where I got my points, but I'm basically a billion.
So I
points.
need to be to be in alignment with the cool kids, Rushley. I need an animated avatar. I need an avatar
Yes.
frame as well, right?
Frame, personally, I don't have a frame right now. I feel like the frame takes away from the avatar.
Wait, you don't like my
itself.
frame?
I think your frame is okay, but
My frame's one of the better frames.
I was looking at frames, and I would like a very subtle frame. Maybe
What
like
about
the
Machine's
glitch
frame?
The glitch frame. Let me see.
Wait,
Does he have one on?
Machine.
That's very subtle. Does he have one on?
Yeah, he's got one on. Machine's got a frame on.
Let me see it full size. Yeah, that's a
Listen-
nice frame. Yeah, it
Yeah,
doesn't take away.
It's just for those people who are only listening, which is everybody.
This is- yeah,
it's the what do you say, like dripping?
it's like
the
oil,
oil, yeah.
like
It's like
mystic
dripping
oil.
And he has Pudge as the avatar.
Oh yeah,
so-
he did mention that he changed to Pudge the other day. He was going for a Dota theme.
Yeah, I like it. I
think
Pudge
that's-
is quite a scary
I
character.
think he made the hooker joke.
I see.
Alex
Okay.
just getting ready for another TI or something. Probably just does one event a year. Makes bank. Oh, now he's he's a Dota player. If anyone checks his team page, oh yeah, he plays Dota.
I love
Dota
that.
is fun though. I like Jason. I think Jason, out of all of us, is the only like one who's gone down the League of Legends path. I think Yanko, you like Dota.
I like Dota. I played League because when I was like a really nerdy gamer, like in my peak years, Dota 2 didn't come out yet. right? And League came out, and Heroes on Earth a little bit before that. So I was just like, I do prefer Dota, but I mean, this game looks cool, so I just started playing it. So I played ranked and all of that stuff for a little bit. But as soon as Dota 2 came out, I switched.
I have a soft spot for Dota because back in the day, I'm assuming it was the same for you guys where you were. Dota was like the fun game that everyone played outside of Counter-Strike. Like if you wanted to play a different game, Dota was like when it was a Warcraft mod back in the day. And I actually think Dota 2 strikes me as the better game, but it's way too like complex and complicated to just like hop in and enjoy a game. You know, like I feel like I couldn't just hop in and just have a good time. League of Legends is like what Riot does. It's their specialty. They just dumb it down so much that you can just kind of hop in and have a good time and call it a day.
Yeah, Dota is way more punishing.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
And like I don't want to have to worry about like creep denying and all that shit. I can't do that these days. I'm too old.
I got a crowbar in right now. Rush, I got to get you out of here. You've already overstayed. You're welcome.
I love Dota.
You don't want to hang around and talk. I know
like
that.
The,
it makes it feel like I'm kicking you out.
The dragon claw hook.
I want you to stay, but you don't want to stay for long. So
I got business to get done.
Yeah, you've got to conduct some business in DayZ, mate.
Got
you
a phone call
get
with
on.
Tokyo.
about observing.
Something like that.
Yeah, okay. You can't tell us what the phone call Tokyo's about?
NDA.
Okay, all right. All right, fair enough. All right, thank you, Rush. Make sure you stop recording and then upload it and send it.
All right, I'm going to stop recording and I'm going to upload it. Do I send it to Jason? Should I speak about this after? We'll talk about this after, right?
Well, you can get ahead by sending it to Jason.
You like, what kind of file we're talking there, Jason?
Get him a WAV.
Yeah, WAV.
Get him a Google Drive.
A Google Drive .wav.
Yeah,
send him the link.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks, Rush.
Google's talking to me. All right, peace out, peace.
Bye. I had to work really hard to get him just to come here for 10 minutes. I didn't want to, I remember last time he couldn't find a way in. He didn't want to interrupt the conversation. So I just thought, I'll get him the fuck out of here. And he doesn't have to feel like he's a passenger. You know, he can go be a driver of his own life right now. And he can go enjoy a little bit more of his day. And I was thinking about something recently. I think it was what Alex was saying this the other day. It was bringing up that saying of, what was the last thing you did for the first time?
Shit.
And I don't know. I don't think this is the first time, but it's the last new thing I can remember doing in a while. I have a lot of permissions here on this TeamSpeak, gentlemen. I created a whole new locked channel with even a fedora as an icon, and that's where we find ourselves today. We have our own TeamSpeak channel called Podcast Studio.
Ooh, I didn't even notice that, but it does feel cleaner.
Yeah, but
I did think you sound better, Chad. So it must be the
fedora.
I played with the codec a little bit,
codec,
Yeah, I did all that stuff. So we're working in a private environment here. This is like our digital office for having all things conversation, and it's a warm location out here. It's safe.
This is quite the TeamSpeak. This is like very much like a everyone hangout space. For everything you need is in here.
Yeah, right now, just so people know what's going on, Rushley Ranger 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is here. We've also got, I've closed some of the fucking channels. Fuck. Blair and Machine were here, weren't they?
Yeah, I saw them earlier.
Are they still here? Yeah, they were here. They are. Oh, they are up there. They're up there in Chill Out 1.
Competitive does too, man. Probably CS2 players.
Yeah, and then we got one of our mates we play with, Johnny. He's done there. He also edits videos for ESL, and he was a professional Rainbow Six player. It's not thriving right now. It's more thriving. Harry and Hugo will be around later.
Yeah, they're
that I can guarantee.
Probably.
Yeah, that's Dinko likes to come on in.
Yeah,
Henry G. There's a lot of people who transit through here.
Dinko messaged me the other night, Jason. He was just about to watch The Rock.
Oh yes. I remember talking to him about that in Malta, and I was like, "It's going to change your life, my friend."
We talking about the wrestler here?
No, the Sean Connery, Nicolas Cage. Don't tell me you haven't seen it.
Right now.
It's an action movie. It feels like a classic. It's I think Hans Zimmer did the soundtrack for it, and it's epic. I mean, it's one of those '90s action movies where it's
Michael Bay as well, isn't it?
Is it Michael Bay? It might be. Let's see. But the point being, the plot is obviously a little bit whack, as you can imagine, right? But like just the the acting lineup. You have Sean Connery, you have Nicolas Cage, you have Ed Harris in there. The music is amazing, and it just it's like one of those good time movies. It's not gonna blow your mind. It's not Interstellar. It's not.
But it fills the
It's not
entertainment
Inception,
void.
but it's entertaining, man. It's like Alcatraz is the venue, so you can imagine, right? Like a little bit of that, and I don't know. I like those kinds of movies. I think people nowadays, there's so much, there's so many at this point, amazing like TV shows and movies and everything that people want every single TV show to be, I don't know, The Sopranos or The Wire or you know Game of Thrones for someone, I guess, up until the last couple of seasons. They want to be blown away completely by the plot and the characters and everything, and that's cool. But those shows are like, and those movies are, hard to make, man. It's hard to come up with all that shit and execute it really well and whatnot. So I'm fine with some. I have movies or TV shows that I watch that are just fun. Like, I mean, it just kills time. Like, for example, I love Guy Ritchie movies. They're a bit of a different. That's like Snatch and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. But even the newer ones, The Gentleman and King Arthur, right? Like his take on King Arthur and the way he did that. Like for me, that's super cool. Yeah. That's like super. That's a fun like 2 hours to spend. Yeah, it didn't further me. It didn't make me a better human because of it, and I didn't spend the next 5 hours thinking about it. I just watched it and that's it. But it was fun. So I think people just
the '90s action movie is a lost art. It's
yeah, man.
Really
like we watched
art.
Face Off in Malta. Like, I mean, that's such a ridiculous plot line, but it's there's like fun times in there.
It's kind of like I just watched John Wick, and it's not going to blow anyone away for the scripting, but I'm there to watch like these sequences of people getting fucked up. Yeah, and it's like it's entertainment, right? So I don't know. I guess you can take it in a lot of different ways. I don't think I've seen that movie that you're talking about though, but I think that there's some good actors in there. I think Ed Harris is. Was Ed Harris in Westworld, Jason, that we were watching for a while?
Yeah. He was the Man in Black.
How deep down that Westworld rabbit hole did you go? Did you finish it? I don't think I got first season done. There was something with getting on a train and leaving or something.
First season was good. Second season we started watching during our Australia vacation after IAM Sydney, and I think we watched the first 2 episodes together as a group, and I've never opened it after that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, fair enough. It died there. It died there for me as well.
Yeah, it's just it takes a lot, right? Like it's one of those shows you really have to pay attention to. I don't think it like grabbed me enough for me to like dedicate that much time to like following those kinds of deep storylines and layers of different things.
Yeah, I think like a lot of shows start off good and then they just go fucking bad or weird. Like people haven't thought past the first like season or two. A lot of these ideas, I don't know. I wouldn't be the one wanting to keep them alive.
Sitcoms are the worst for that. Sitcoms do like 3 like really good seasons and then they just like run out of jokes and then it just gets like stupid. It gets like really silly.
Yeah. Should we talk about? I was trying to think where I wanted to segue us in here, and I wanted to kind of give you some props, Jason. I wanted to give you that Mongols jacket that you've got.
Yeah.
It's aged well. It's back in fashion.
I know.
Have you seen the news?
I'm going to bring it everywhere. I haven't, actually. I saw a tweet from Bled this morning, and I was like, yeah, bro, I'll take all the Mongolian apparel, but I have no idea what it was about.
So basically...
The tweet he quoted was, like, deleted, so I didn't get any information.
IHC players, I suppose they've left the organization here. The former IHC squad will be competing at the aforementioned event as the Mongols.
Oh my lord, it's beautiful. I'm bringing it everywhere.
Yeah, so you've held on to a really good piece of fashion.
Maybe not everywhere, but yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
just be careful where you leave it, Jason.
Exactly. I've had a couple jackets taken from me at various events, left in places. That's unfortunate. But yeah, this one. This one's a treasure. I don't think that was ever on sale. Like I messaged the Mongols back in the day in like 2016, and just said, "Hey, I love that jacket. Can I like buy it? And can you bring me one because they came to Columbus for an event, I think, and he just brought me one. So I don't think that's even like very widespread."
Yeah. So you not only do you have a piece that you've held on to, it's also quite unique. You're really up in the world of Asian Counter-Strike right now, but I'm curious, right? Like this is getting a little bit Counter-Strike talky already.
Yeah,
We're gonna,
that's all good.
I don't want to peak there early, but it's funny how this roster, like changed a fair amount already. Like we always thought Bartak was just a stand-in. Now he's just fucking there. Cabal's right. He was the one missing. Score's gone. He's out. It wasn't by his own choice. Now they got this guy in his 24, Hasteka. What's going on? This is where we need to get Blair on the phone.
Well, didn't they? We could probably get him in here. I can message him.
Yeah, but they'll have the whole issue of having to do this fucking Audacity recording sync shit. I don't know how we're gonna do it from not the live portion.
That's true.
You're the best.
I could do it.
We got, so
I could do it.
you could do it.
I
You
think I
it's
could
possible?
do it. I think we just have to. We have to just clap when he gets in. You know.
All right. Well, let's explore. Let's explore this option here for a moment.
Well, maybe first we can just message him to see if he actually knows anything about it, so that
That's true.
he
I'll
doesn't
message
just
him real
come
quick.
in and then it's whatever. But yeah, it seems, I agree with you, Chad. It seems like very strange, right? Like first it was just Bartek signing in for Cabal, who was I think he was having a baby, right? So he was on leave because of that, and then Score is just out. He had that weird Instagram message where it's like it wasn't my choice. So that leaves you thinking either it's the org who wanted them out or the other players. And now that they are not, that they're the Mongols again, well, he would have been back if it was the org. So the players didn't want him there. And he was like fragging. So that probably means it's, something related to either his attitude, behavior, I don't know, pure speculation, of course. And then on top of all of that, Cabal isn't coming back, Bartek's staying, and Hastekas came in. So a lot of changes for them, which is something you don't necessarily, I don't love that at all, because they've just been making results, right? So
Well, this is the thing that we can do quite easily here is we can look at how that would look for a normal like team that we know a bit more about and their players and stuff and the way we'd look at that. I think a part of it is we lump it into a region where we don't know what's going on as much. But when these moves happen in like better teams, we don't always know the reason these things are happening either. Right, it can kind of just happen, and maybe you hear something behind the scenes of, oh yeah, this guy was difficult to work with, or yeah, this guy he wanted to go, he wanted to go do this offer, or he needed to go be with his family or some shit. Like you never really, like with some of the changes, they can just be quizzical changes. So I guess for me, this just falls under one of those. Things are going well, you headed in the right direction. Why the need for the change? Did you feel you hit your cap? Was he not that's where we start asking the questions of what happened. So.
I wonder if it's tied at all into the IHC problems that the org was having, right, with their financial issues. Those reports that came out a while back. So I'm wondering if like there's some things tied in that with the roster changes. Like I'd be surprised if they weren't connected in some way. If we want to hit the pause on this, Blaz said he would hop on. He needs about 5 minutes to finish a short match. It's 6-8 right now.
I don't think bother him about it right now. This is the thing. I think we're already winding up the conversation. But if he wants to stroll on by, it's just this whole sinking situation, Jason.
Listen, last time it was a nightmare. I'd rather not do it, and we can bring him in for something like more, like proper, some other time.
Substantial.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we've just
Vlad
just
deserves
dated him
more
a
than
little bit.
5 minutes on this
It's all good.
podcast. He deserves, as Rush had get animated, something.
Are you on a Blair
Spice
Blair
it up,
segment?
and then it's
Spice it
Blair
up with
talking
Blair.
Spice it up with Blair, and then he's talking
Okay.
about how we're all a bunch of pussies for, not being able to handle red pepper in our meals, and he eats, I don't know, dragon eggs for breakfast in India or something.
He
like
can eat very hot food.
that. Absolutely.
It is confirmed. Well, I don't know if either of you yes, Jason?
No, that was me. But I think just for the Mongols thing, it's like I'm afraid that it might be a Movistar Rider scenario, right? Where they've just had some actual success in a long time, and they've been fighting for a long time to, have some good results and then start playing good Counter-Strike. And now they've made a couple of changes, right? So even if these players are good replacements, let's say, it's going to take time for them to get back to the same level. And also, it's always, we've all been there when you change players on your team and then you have to start over from the basics and from scratch. Like that's always like the things you need to do, but they're very boring and just getting through those motions. So I don't know. I think this might be 2 steps back before they start making steps forward.
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially it's hard for the region as well.
It's very possible, but also, I mean, it almost felt like I wonder if they'd already felt like maybe they hit their kind of ceiling, because like they weren't making great progress, and even if they take some steps back, maybe now's the best time to make this kind of a change.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just hard.
I think it's really hard to judge this stuff too, because we don't know the players super well. Like I don't know how
precisely.
I don't know how Azteca likes to play really at all. So yeah.
But that's one of the things as well. Like with, I suppose, more of the top European teams and even the top American teams, you kind of see the field of players who are available, and you get to see them play it. And I guess you can as well look and see these players play, but we're looking for how they match up against the best teams in the world, not necessarily local competition. If they're absolutely mauling local competition, right? Like going, I don't know, 30 kills a game, just fucking destroying. Yeah, okay. Well, then you know that this person is very, very good compared to the region, right? But that's otherwise no, right? Like if they're doing that consistently, then you turn your head. If it's just they're getting through games, you know, they get I don't know 18 frags in one match, the next they're getting 24. Like, if it needs to be consistent domination for us to really be able to measure anything, and even then, it's not substantial. So that's the same thing with, I guess, Australia in a way, right? Most people in the rest of the world only really hear about the Greyhound guys, and then maybe you see the LFO guys came, and you see what some of their players have to offer. And we've just had the Roosters come, and we get to see what some of those guys were capable of as well. But people aren't really watching that all the time. So it's just with the smaller regions, that's one of the keys. There's not a lot of eyes looking for that upcoming talent. Also, not many opportunities for them to really show if they are any good against the rest of the world. But it is what it is.
It's always a fun, exciting like storyline to follow though too, because like we still haven't seen anyone from like Asian Counter-Strike like really break into the scene. They've only ever like peaked at that point where they're just like a dangerous squad that can beat like a decent team on the best day. They can beat like a good team in a best of 3. They can cause some BO1 upsets if you're not careful. But no one's ever like broken in to be like a consistent competitor. So every time like an Asian scene or an Asian team like kind of pops off like this in their own region and then goes and makes a couple decent upsets, everyone gets, jacked up. We all get excited because we want to see an Asian team finally do that.
Yeah. I wonder if with CS2, if it picks up more in regions, right? Like if America gets a little bit of a reboot, if Asia and whatnot get a bigger influx of players, like if those things happen, and it's not overnight that these teams will just become better, but with more people or more eyes on these bits and bobs, then there's always going to be more players, and there's more chance that you could catch some of the better talent coming through. I'm just like scrolling around HLTV now, looking at all this online Counter-Strike that's been happening. It's fucking crazy, like just how many online events have been going on at the same time. And it is wild that I look at them. What's the difference between a Blast Premier Spring Showdown and like the IEM Dallas qualifiers? Because they're both trying to qualify for you for an event, right?
Yeah,
there is none.
That's basically the same tournament.
I think the key difference is like Blast obviously make it look better with their production for the event by having like all the talent on site and stuff. And I guess the other thing is there's prize money for it. Whereas like with the Dallas stuff, it's double elimination and there's no prize money. But if you go to IEM Dallas, then you get the base level prize money, which I think is like 4K or some shit. But I think for the Blast Spring Showdown, it's like 20K. But otherwise, it's essentially like the same thing. And it's online Counter-Strike as well. I forgot what it was like. We've been back in like a really nice... we've been in a nice length of LANs, I feel, in like recent time. We've been consistently going to LAN events. They've been happening. We haven't been skipping anything. The pandemic hasn't caused us any issues in a while. And now just like seeing online Counter-Strike again, it's like, oh, fuck. You just kind of, I'm reminded now. You remember how when it was when we only had online Counter-Strike, I was like, well, at least we have online Counter-Strike. But when you have LAN CS, you're like, fuck.
Think about when we had a mostly online circuit back in like 2015, 2016. Like, yeah, we all had like the asterisks next to online, but you still got hype for the matches because that's what like all of Pro League used to be done online until the LAN finals.
Yeah.
There was a lot of online Counter-Strike back in the day that we got jacked up for.
But I used to love, like, in Australia, just to qualify for certain things, you had to qualify online, right? And that's it was still fucking intense playing in your bedroom.
How bad are the pings playing from like Perth to Sydney? Is it?
Oh, not good.
Yeah,
not good.
Is it like
I
East
don't know what
Coast
it
to
is
West
these
Coast?
days.
Is it like 70ish?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, you're talking 70 to 90.
Yeah.
Maybe it's better
Depending
now.
on routing,
like, yeah, but it's pretty rough. But like, I still remember getting fired up in my bedroom. Like, family would be at the dinner table eating, and I'm playing like a fucking grand final of some online event, getting fired up, yelling the boys. It's there was definitely excitement there, but it is just harder because the game is essentially played differently, right? And some of those differences are the way like you're picking corners or holding angles, or like when I felt like I used to have some like armor when I had the lag. Like I would be able to just go these wide swings, and their first couple of shots would just miss me, and then I'd just be able to just fucking mow them down. I don't know if that still is mega prevalent today. I imagine it just sucks playing with anything that's more than 50 ping. And I play on servers from Malta, right? The best you can get is like 40, maybe 45 with good routing to Germany, which is fine. But I feel like anything over, 60 ping, it's just fucking rough. Like you feel the delay. Because the game's all about like making those instant reactions and everything like that. So when you get I don't know how bad the disparity is in some of these matches. We don't get to see the pings anymore. That's the difference. When we watched online Counter-Strike back in the day, you actually connected to the IP and you could see what everyone's pinging shit was. I don't know what people are pinging. There's no way to know that info, right? Unless they tell you. Or unless you see what type of server they're playing on. I imagine it's German most of the time.
Yeah, I wouldn't know actually. I don't know what the preferred server
in
is
Europe? Yeah, I mean usually Germany, but I think teams from let's say Spain that are playing from Spain or Portugal, they would want France, right? Because it's more fair. I mean for them, right? Like it's less bad for them. It's a little bit worse for you, but Germany is much better for you and pretty bad for them, something like that. But yeah, most of the time it's Germany. So but I think the amount of online games too. I think we talked about this on one of the previous episodes, specifically with Cloud9, that I think they will benefit from this.
Yeah.
And the grind, because when
today's a test for them though.
Yeah, and I think they just lost to Astralis, 2-1 game, and I think that's just like, well, now they've had to play almost every single day after being back for Pro League, playing in the playoffs. Right, so maybe there is a little bit of fatigue at this point for that first game against Astralis, because I look at the stats and it's like Exile lowest rated on Cloud9, 0.76 rating, 39 and 56. Right, and especially on the first map on Ancient, which Cloud9 lost in overtime, is Shiro is plus 20 with 152 rating, and then the next one is Buster with 0.9 rating. I mean, if they just had a little bit more on that map, they would have won 2-0. And I'm happy to see Device have a great series, great third map on Overpass, 1.74 rating. Shit, like 34-19. Yeah, so that was good. But I think it's just, they're going to be awake, fully awake for the second series. And, it's do or die now. They have to play against OG, right, for the spot. And I think they have a big advantage coming into that series, so I don't think it's going to be an issue. But especially with Buster, like just getting more reps in with him getting more adjusted to the team, right? And I think we saw a little bit of what Cloud9 was talking about, of some of the things that they've gained from adding Buster, specifically in the grand final against FaZe, because you could see him struggle in some games. Just have like, sometimes you're just finding yourself in shit positions, shit situations, but he really does feel like a guy who's just always plays the same. Like he understands his role and what he needs to do, and he's not, you have players who, if they're having a bad game, they're gonna turtle up and not take risks anymore. Not Buster. He's still going for the plays he needs to go for. They've praised his communication in the mid-round, suggestions, helping out, all that sort of stuff. So we'll see if they can keep riding that momentum.
Well, that's what's good about all these matches, right? I was just looking at some of the numbers here. So since they started the Pro League playoffs, which was on the 23rd of last month, they've already played 30 maps. So that's 30 maps in 10 days. So what, we're averaging 3 maps a day, like non-stop
I mean, they
since
had to
that
play.
point.
I watched their games. They had 2 best-of-3s in one day. On 2 days in a row, they had to play 2 best-of-3s in one day. It's like also that's something that's a little bit unheard of for a top 5 team, top 10 team, a tier 1 team to have to play something like that.
Did you guys see that tweet about SDY that was put out by Eleanor Jesus?
Yeah, you retweeted that, right?
Yeah, SDY has played 137 maps since joining Monty at the beginning of the year in January. When he was in Navi, he was there for a year and a half, or half a year, excuse me, not a year and a half, half a year, and he played 79 maps. Like he's played more maps in like 2 months than he did with Navi over 6 months.
And there's definitely something like, I mean, it's grueling, right? When you have to play so many games, especially on the in-game leader and the coach, right? Because they're the ones who do most of the prep and scout the opponents, and also, I mean, just leading your own team. If you're the in-game leader, like being on top of what are the tendencies for this opponent, what are the things what are actually our tendencies, because we're playing so many games that, like, you can't. It's lethal.
You don't feel like you have time to make any changes, like any significant changes.
And it's but it's absolutely lethal if you're lazy and just call the same thing again, right? That you called, the same anti-eco that you've done the last 3 times you played Mirage. They're going to be anti-stratting for that. So that part of it can be really difficult, but also you just learn how to do shit on the fly, right? And your players learn to adapt on the fly, and you're playing so many different styles that you basically seen it all. I mean, in an official environment, right? And your players just learn how to improvise, and then you have more flexibility as a team and as an in-game leader to make calls, right? Because you had to, in order to win some of these online games, you just had to do stuff on the fly and improvise. And then, well, if you improvise the same thing 5 games in 7 days, well, then, it's something that's in your playbook. Simple as that, right? So,
Yeah.
and I think we've seen that even with teams like Forza in Pro League, right? Like having some good results too. So, yeah, I think for a team like Cloud9, definitely benefits them. I just saw the tweet from Heku, and I chuckled. She tweeted something like, online Counter-Strike right now. And then it's a photo from Harry Potter. Why is it when something always happens, when something happens, it's always you 3, and it's like Cloud9, OG, NIP. It does feel every time I check HLTV, these 3 teams, like 2 of these 3 teams are playing each other. It feels like OG and NIP played 5 times in the last month.
It's funny, though, when you think about that, right? Because the reason Cloud9 are in the position where they have to play these qualifiers is because they're not partner teams in some cases, right? Because like they're definitely good enough to get like an automatic invite to a lot of these events.
Yeah.
But they have to, like, they don't get a chance to play in the blast stuff until the showdown. That's their only way to qualify, and they did. So they'll be going to Washington. So basically, they did what they had to do at the open qualifier to get through. And then for the ESL stuff, I don't know how the invites are distributed to different events, right? But it's like they were the team that won Dallas last year, and now they have to requalify. And they're like they're easily like a top, I don't know, 8 team in the world, Cloud9, I would say, right? So, but that means the teams that they're down around, right? So the teams who are failing in the partner agreement events, which are NIP and OG, right? Those teams are not doing what they need to do. Then they have to play in these qualifiers, and that's where you have the fucking sharks like Cloud9 come in and eat them all up, right? So I don't know. That's the thing for Cloud9. It would benefit you to, like, you'd be benefited by being a partner team, by not having to play these events, and most likely get yourself through on the merit that you build by performing well. Or if you don't stay a partner team, you have to play all these qualifiers, but you don't, like, I don't know, maybe it's more beneficial to the players if what Yanko's saying is bang on. Like, it's better that they're keeping up these reps to put themselves in a more competitive position, or maybe this is only good for now because Buster's just joined. So it's a good way to bed him in with a lot of different maps by playing a lot of Counter-Strike and working out a whole bunch of different possibilities. And should you do that maybe once a year as like a boot camp refresher thing of online CS, and you get to play against all these crazy teams? Like, is it beneficial playing a couple of online tournaments before going into an RMR? Because going into an RMR, like, you're going to be playing against some of these teams that just are, like, I don't want to call them one tricks, but they're going to have something that is going to work versus you, and it's enough to win one of those best of ones. And online Counter-Strike is probably the closest thing to that, as opposed to like big LAN CS, right?
I think it's very important what your team dynamic is. And like, I think it can be beneficial. It can be a good thing, especially if you had to play for a while without officials. But you need to have the correct mindset going into that, right? Like you absolutely don't want a situation in which you go in and you lose to a team you're quote unquote not supposed to, and then it wrecks the players' confidence coming into the RMR, right? Like that's not worth it. Even if you wanted to, let's say, pick a map that you used to ban, or let some different maps through, right? Just so to change your, to make your opponents think twice in the veto at the RMR or something like that. It's not worth it if your confidence is shot. But if you have the correct mindset and as a team you talk it through and say, listen, guys, like we are going to play this tournament because X, Y, and Z, and whatever happens, we're fine at the RMR. We have a plan for that. We know what we're trying to achieve there and how we're going to do it, how we're going to execute that tournament. And then it can be good, right? Because for some situations, you just would like to test them in an official setting before you come to play. Maybe you haven't played, maybe you have this weird situation, which was maybe G2 or one of these good teams where G2 was like playing 4 maps for a lot of the tournament, or maybe it was a team at the major, maybe it was outsiders at the major. I don't know, but where
I know what you're
you're
talking about.
eventually, yeah, you're eventually going to be tested on this map, and let's say you haven't played Ancient for 3 months, and now you have to play it for the first time in an official setting at the RMR, right, or at the major, even if you want to talk about it that way. It's like, yeah, of course you practiced it a lot, but you haven't played it in an official setting in 3 months. That's always kind of weird feeling as a player, and I mean for me as a coach too. I never really liked that. I would have always, sometimes even in the veto, if you are a favorite in a game, you would maybe let that map go as a third, or I don't know, just so that in a game where there's maybe not as much on the line, you can get it out of the way. So if someone picks it against you, let's say in the playoffs of a tournament, that's not the first time you played it in 3 months, which can be really weird. So I think it can be beneficial for teams, absolutely, but you need to have like a good mindset coming into it.
It is interesting seeing like different teams' approaches and where they find themselves, like, because there's teams in different places, right? Some teams are going to be happy to play a lot more and they need to ramp up. They need to get the reps in. I think NIP and OG are examples of that, though, because their teams at the moment seem like they're all over the place.
I was gonna say how much of that is really hard to read into, just because they all have such a crazy roster of people at the moment.
Well, yeah, but that's kind of the point. Is like in the lead into the RMRs, everybody kind of like, if you're FaZe, you probably don't want to play a lot because you don't want to show much of your game, and your game doesn't need to be that well refined. Your players just need to be ready, right? Like the Arsenal is stocked, right? They're fucking full to the brim. They've got everything ready to go, but they just need to stay primed and ready. Would them playing more matches with the added pressure being, hey, you're FaZe, you're one of the best teams in the world that you have to win, on their shoulders be worthwhile? Well, probably not. Cloud9, they are a team who's pretty close to winning, right? They're a good team. We just saw them in the grand final. We know that they're a good, solid unit, but we're seeing how quickly they can get up back to where they were, which is when they had Inters, and how far they can now push it that they have Buster. What is the difference going to be? So they have a lot of like proving to do now with this roster, whereas like FaZe are good. Like they're ready and geared. Like G2 are good. They're ready and fucking geared. Same with Heroic. Like I feel like these are the type of teams who we are proven at the moment to be able to compete at the top level. Whereas a couple more who are now trying to throw their name into that ring. And this could be what does that for Cloud9 for some people, right? So I don't look at this Astralis result they just had as a bad result for Cloud9. I look at it as a good result for Astralis. I think to be able to take down, and yeah, anyone could bring up the conversation of, oh yeah, maybe they're getting a bit fatigued and stuff. There's definitely merit in that. And as I just said, they're playing 3 maps a day for the last 10 days.
Wasn't there a breakout year during COVID when they played in literally all the online
exactly,
tournaments
yeah.
as well? Like that was the last
But that's why
time
Yanko backs him.
Yeah.
That's why Yanko thinks this is a good move for him, right?
Yeah.
I don't think, and as long as they don't take the Astralis loss as a bad loss, then they're in a perfect position. I think it's fine that they lost to Astralis.
Well,
Astralis are looking better.
Just quickly, Jason, look at their results. Like they've had a good win streak up until the loss against FaZe, and then after the loss against FaZe, they had another nice win streak right up until this loss to Astralis, right? Which, in the grand scheme of things, if they win this OG game, means absolutely nothing for them.
Yeah, they still achieved what they wanted to achieve. And maybe some weaknesses of what they didn't realize were weaknesses were just shown to them, which is fine. Like if it is fatigue and it's like, oh yeah, we made some bad decisions, but if it's, oh, there was a gap here or we needed a way out of this, and now they go and add something extra to their playbook, it helps them.
So after the loss to IHC in Kato, they won 7 best of threes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 7 best of threes. So 7 series in a row before the loss to FaZe. And since the loss to FaZe, they won another 7 before the loss to Astralis. Like that, those are like nice streaks. Sure, there are teams in there like Copenhagen Flames, Godsend Falcons, Sync, I don't know, Bad News Eagles, Voivoda, like they're not all tier 1 amazing teams. But there's also some strong wins. Obviously, G2, Outsiders, right? The one against
Ents is looking like a strong win these days.
Yeah, Ents and Mouse too. Those are all good teams, right? That you're winning series. So compared to how it was, obviously in Katowice, much better. And I think you can feel hopeful if you're
a C9
if
fan.
you're a C9 fan, and I want to use this opportunity to finish my analogy with C9 and the ex-girlfriend and the relationship. Okay,
here we go.
I'm gonna bring it full circle, right?
Sure.
So as we were going, and I understand how this is gonna feel shit because either no one watched Pro League or people who won't watch this or whatever. But with how it ended for Cloud9, I was saying I'm not gonna believe them again. I've been failed before by them. I've been betrayed. So they have to earn my trust back. That relationship was over. And then they qualify for the playoffs, and it's like, okay, this is where it all used to fall apart. Then they win the first series in the playoffs against Mouse. So I'm thinking, okay, this is a little bit, it's just, they're posting the pictures, they're back in the gym, right? You're seeing all of that stuff. Your second thoughts are starting to creep in, but that's the bait, right? You don't want to fall for that. That's just, the first step. Then the second one comes in against Ants, and you're like, well, first of all, that should have been someone like, G2 maybe, but they've screwed the pooch, so they get a quote-unquote easier opponent. But again, they managed to win. It's another big game. That's 2 playoff series in a row that they won. Well, now I'm actually starting to, hey, wait, maybe they're actually changing. Maybe this is that new person, that potential that was, always in your head that you thought they could achieve, right? But now I'm in trouble, right? Now it's the big one against FaZe. And if they ended up beating FaZe, then all of a sudden, well, they don't need me anymore. They're way better. Like they're past me. I don't have a chance, right? They saw they could do much better. Exactly. They're out of my league now. So, but with this, the 3-1 loss to FaZe, taking a map, putting up a good fight in the series, right? I think now Cloud9 and me, we're in that good spot where, maybe we can try one more time, right? Maybe the relationship can be renewed, trust can be regained, right? But as it always is, this is the last time, guys. I'm not kidding. I gave you the second chance.
So what's the deal breaker then? What's the deal breaker then, Yanka? There has to be a deal breaker, right? There has to be something where the change happens, and that's the GG no re.
The deal breaker would be not qualifying for the major. Let's say.
Okay, all right,
Let's
that's
say
fair
that
enough.
would absolutely be a deal breaker, right? But I think now I'm in a position where I can trust Cloud9 again.
Oh God.
A bit by bit. So
this is you want to continue that analogy. This is where the friend steps in and is like, bro, you're going down a dark path again. We thought you were over this, and you're going right back in it.
Yes, probably. Yes, but listen, guys, you know the story, Jason, but you don't know how they made me feel. Right? Only I know all the good and the bad parts, right? Because when you tell someone things that happen to you or your relationship, like they will only judge based on what you've told them and how you've told the story. And obviously, if you're hurt, right, like you're going to mostly focus on the negative sides. And then when the person hears that, what advice can they give you besides get the fuck out of there? That's a toxic relationship. But I know there were some sweet moments in there too. So we'll see.
Well, they're gonna be playing OG, right? No, but
Did you like
I
that?
think
Did you like that trip you took with me, Jason?
Yeah, that got me in the feels.
it's a scarring lane for me.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm taking a look here, right? They're playing OG, who at the start of one of these online events, I don't even know which fucking one it was.
And OG, just to continue on this real quick, Chad. Sorry, OG is
Yeah.
that girl that the only guys that didn't fuck her were the guys that were rushing to catch a bus.
Bloody hell.
Another Serbian classic.
I don't. Yeah,
It's better in its original Serbian.
Okay. Well, looking at this OG roster, right? They had Nico standing. Sorry, not Smooya standing the other day, didn't they? At some point, Smooya was standing.
Whoever
yeah,
Dexter
Smith's-
in one game, yeah.
Yeah. But that's since been rectified. They've won 3 games in a row. They've been godsent at Sync, and now they're going to be playing against. They won beat Fnatic, and now they're going to be playing against Cloud9. Like, what's happened? What's the go with Fnatic, man? Are Fnatic just no good online? Like, what is Fnatic's deal? I don't know what their deal is. Does anyone know what's up with Fnatic? That's like the age-old question.
I have.
You have a theory, Jason?
I have like a scary theory that I think maybe maybe this is
scary.
maybe they've hit the peak. Maybe maybe they're just not as high as we all got really excited about this team because they look great like really early, really quick, right? And they haven't progressed past that at all. And like their results like lately have been disappointing to start this year for sure. So I have like the scary suspicion that they've just kind of hit the limits of where this team, like Nikodos hasn't seemed like he's found like a consistent streak within the roster. I think, I don't know. I just feel like maybe there's a point where like we just have to say we got excited about Fnatic quickly and it was warranted, but there's nowhere left for it to go.
So do you think that could be tied to their performance at the major, Yanko? Do you think there was a bit of overhype in that scenario?
I don't think it's necessarily overhype. Like they played good Counter-Strike, right? I think the burning question that still hasn't been answered is who's the best player on this team?
Like, I feel like it should be Roy.
Who's the star player on this team? Like, who's the fragger? Who are the
Well, it's supposed to be Fasher, I thought, right? When he was brought in,
and I'm going to come in and say maybe Nico does, right? So that's the problem. Like, the three of us here just named
different
three
answers,
different guys,
yeah.
right? So I think no one has really stood out. Like, sure, it's a team game and everyone's supposed to deliver and all of that stuff. But, who's the go-to guy? Like, who's the guy that we look to make the big plays when the game is like close. In the series they lost to OG. Crims is the top-rated player. I love Crims. Always have as a player and a character and all of that. He shouldn't be top fragging in this team. Like he's objectively past his prime and he's more of a not support player, but like the glue guy and fill in the gaps and someone you can rely on. But you don't expect him to frag out game in and game out. It looked like it was maybe Mezzi for a while, which is even weirder, right? He's the in-game leader. He's not even in a position to put up huge numbers, right? So I think that's the strange thing. Like I don't know if that's because maybe the style doesn't suit all the players that much. Maybe they can't, find their sweet spot.
Well, Messi's still relatively, I don't know, like I would say young as an in-game leader. Maybe not inexperienced, but like this was never supposed to be his thing.
Doesn't it feel like their team lacks identity in terms of how they approach the game? But I
feel like they had one early. I felt like a style from them when they had their initial like bursts that we were all surprised by. I felt like I could see some Fnatic like flair to it that felt like it was kind of this unique feature of them, but it's disappeared. Also,
they're really
two,
default heavy to me.
There are two kind of like rifle stars that we mentioned in terms of like Fasher and Roy that might have to be the star players. They're both, whatever stock you want to put in this, they're both old-ish, 27 and 29.
That was the gamble with this team, right? I think Mezzi and Nikodos are the two youngest members of this team, whereas Crims, Fasher, and Roy are, you're right.
24, and Nikodos maybe 2? Or?
It feels weird calling them old, by the way, but like that is kind of like the nature of all these young stars that we've seen burst onto the scene recently.
Yeah, he's 22. Yeah, but that's bang on, Jason. But that's the thing. Like you need a couple of them for sure. And I'm not saying that they're aged out or anything, but I think that the lifespan of this team is like a short one when it can be successful. So realistically, like you would give this roster what it could achieve in a year is probably the best it's going to achieve, right? Like unless you get some crazy like spikes out of Nikodos and Mezzi. Like
Yeah.
if you can even get consistent performances out of Roy, Fasher, and Crims, right? And then Mezzi and Nikodov's like become like these mega late bloomers. But I feel like the team, just by virtue of what you mentioned, the ages of some of these players, it is not, they're not going to give this roster like, 2 years or anything like that. They're more competitive than the previous roster, but I don't know if they're going to win trophies.
You know what
Zoomers.
You know what it is about this team that makes me not have faith in them is when I look at this roster and when it's in servers, I always have this feeling that like I'm looking at a team that's built out of like 5 really solid options for like role player for like the 4th or 5th player on the team, right? There's just 5 of them that are like those just strong role players, but they're not the best in any of their positions.
But that's what I mean about the identity. Like the players kind of define the way we look at teams. Sure, there's systems that are put in place, but when I think about Navi, it's obviously simple, getting to dictate a lot of things with how he wants to approach rounds. That's like the attitude of the team, and then I can extrapolate that to Bit liking to snap to some heads. He's got quite good aim. That's one of my identifying factors with him and Navi. And then I would move over to Electronic, making these crazy aggressive moves on the CTRT sides, making a lot of space and just being a baller rifler. Like that's the personality for that team right there. But I just compared them to Na'Vi, and a Fnatic aren't winning. So maybe that's like, I don't know. I know that Nikodov likes to take a lot of risks with the AWP, but it doesn't feel like he consistently gets away with it as much as maybe somebody like a Monacy.
Yeah.
Right. I think Roy was always like this really good, like,
I like Roy a lot.
Like a mop rifler. Like he'd either come out swinging like all what's the fucking all bleached up, ready to give the floors a bit of a clean, or he'd come in late. He's just taking a slow left and right mop in a hallway with a muppet with a bucket and a mop. That analogy that I just made there, Yanko, makes no sense at all. But I hope you
an
enjoy
Aussie
it.
one, or was that your attempt at making up a Serbian one?
This is me just trying to talk.
Okay.
So, we always have that type of a drama as well there. But I don't know. I just think there's limiting. Like I look at a lot of teams here, guys. Like either team's really good at a certain map, or like Heroic has a personality. Liquid, I guess, I don't know. Liquid, I know what the qualities of the team are. I could tell you what the qualities of the individuals are, but I couldn't tell you necessarily what if the personality of the team was like chaos and clutch, right? Like then yeah. Like when shit seems fucked, Liquid will still make it work somehow. But I don't know what, like it doesn't. The whole thing doesn't seem like it's completely well put together.
It's just
yet.
not consistent yet. It's just not like it's not come together and like glued in a way that they can deliver it game in, game out.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look at all these different teams now and see what pops into my head with them.
I mean, it's hard having. I guess I should. It's just hard. Like I can almost. I kind of know what it's like when they're going into these online games and like losing. Although Paints had their number in general.
Dude, everyone's international now, Jason.
Yeah.
Everyone's fucking international. G2, FaZe. I guess we won't count Liquid.
But I think
Vitality.
For Liquid, it's like, I agree with you, Chad. I think for them, they have an identity crisis.
I think a lot of these teams do.
It's like the problem is also in the way they play a little bit, maybe not as much. I mean, at least they sound like they're on the same page, right? In the way they need to play, like they've accepted a lot of things Yakinder brought in and whatnot. But I think it's more so the map pool, for example. Like, sure, they told us in Pro League we never were going to have a 7-map pool. It was more against teams that like permaban nuke or whatever. Sure, but what I said at the time, when they said this at the start of the year to now, I'll say the same thing. It's like what map are you like could be considered the best in the world or even top 3 in the world?
I think they're trying to make it Anubis, aren't they?
Well, I don't know. They haven't played it as much towards the end of Pro League or playoffs. I don't know what.
I think that's the problem, right? It becomes more limited the deeper you go, I reckon.
Their Mirage seemed good, like at the start with Yekindar, right? Like they had a good run on Mirage, so you were thinking, hey, maybe it's this. They beat FaZe on it a couple of times too. Then they sort of just didn't pick it anymore as much because a little bit of it was Anubis. But it's hard to be the best team in the world on Anubis when it's a new map. Like every tournament, someone will come up with something new. The meta is going to change frequently, right? Because people are just coming up with things and then counters to things and then counters to the counters and so on, right? So Overpass, it seemed pretty good for a while, but it doesn't seem that strong right now. Like that's the problem. Ancient, where do you rate them on Ancient? Their Inferno has been piss poor. It's probably their fifth
Yeah, their Inferno scares
map,
me right now.
which is a big problem because Inferno is one of those maps that are played a lot. They're going to be in the pool plenty of times. You don't really want to veto Inferno because everyone's so familiar with the map, right? Your players too, and I think that's the problem for Liquid. Just their map pool. Like, they need to get, because usually it goes like this, right? Like you are really really good on 2 maps, maybe 3. Then you have like 2 maps that are you can play depending on the opponent. Like if a team that's really good on that map picks it against you, you're probably losing it unless you have one of those games where either an individual goes ham or you win all the key rounds, something like that. And then you have like the worst map for you outside of the permaban, where that's a struggle against probably whoever, and that's not the same for all teams. And that's not the case for everyone, but that's usually how it goes, right? You can pick any of look at G2 right now. Inferno and Nuke, incredibly strong, right? Both maps, if they get to pick one of the two, that's probably a win in their bag. Then we saw that their Ancient seems pretty strong. Anubis, not that many games. Like that's a bit of a question mark, but they've been winning on it. But that happens when you just play well with good individuals. Vertigo seems shaky. What else is there? Overpass. That's their ban.
I mean, they've dropped Vertigo essentially from their map pool at this point. Like, they haven't played in the last 3 months.
No, they lost it to Ents. Ah, you're talking about Liquid. I'm talking about G2, but never mind.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. So, that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of teams at the moment though who we can look at, and this is what I was thinking. Teams are in different piles at the moment, right? So I don't know because every team, unless there's no best team right now. Like I don't think there's unequivocally like a best team at the moment. I don't know if you guys think there's one that's better than everybody else, and you say they're going to win the major, but like I think right now the field is quite tight, and I think that a lot of these different teams are kind of linked together by some of the shortcomings, like Fnatic, NIP, OG. Like we said, identity. Was it you, Yanko, said Identity Crisis? Jason, that doesn't matter. But like those 3 teams to me, right, all feel like they have some form of an identity crisis, whether it's maps or the play style not, being the right fit to be able to win in them. There's like a lot of different parts. Whereas like MOUZ, they're an international team who feel like at least. Maybe we don't. I was gonna say at least we know who they are. But I feel like they know what approach they want a little bit more so though. I feel like their highs are more like they can replicate the highs, whereas I think some of these other teams I don't know if they could. There's more consistency like in MOUZ's gameplay for me. Like I think Ents as well have shown now they have a good base with Snappy, Madden, Dihar, and Sampais of how they want to approach the game, and now they've plugged in Nertz, who is delivering the frags that they need in the positions they put him in.
The new Spinks.
Yeah, but basically, right? So, and I wouldn't say that like Liquid's in a free fall position or anything like that, but there are a few things that are detracting from them being in the like elite conversation, because they're not in the elite conversation for me.
Well, they have a big test this weekend that's going to answer a lot of questions about Liquid. Or not this weekend, with the RMR coming up next week.
Yeah. Well, I think like that's obviously where most of the team's focus is going to go. That's another conversation to have with like the on-ramps to the RMR. How much of the preparation, how much is it you just like conserving energy or like, okay. So they didn't qualify. Liquid didn't qualify for Blast Washington. Jason, you would know better than all of us.
Yeah.
How much does that hurt? Like how much is that a bad thing inside the org for them not to qualify for Blast Washington? Is Liquid upset with that?
They'd better be. Yeah, I would think they are. The players are going to have to be upset too, because this is what they've been asking for. This is what we've all kind of been saying NA needs is to have more events to get NA teams in front of their fans once in a while, and this was a big missed opportunity. Who else is probably pissed about it is Blast. Like, just as the tournament organizers, just like, our like headline North American squad. Like, I would be surprised if I was still coaching, I'd be advocating for us to still have to go to Washington and do like a signing session.
Oh, come on, Jason. Now?
Absolutely.
Come on,
Absolutely.
Jason. Now, don't be that guy.
Yeah, why wouldn't you? Put him in. No, we get him in. Like, you still have a responsibility as the best, even if you failed to qualify, and then put him in a position where they see what they're missing. Now, that's obviously without having to. I no longer have
bring
to
your
take
Kinder in from Latvia to sign some shit.
I no longer have to I'm no longer thinking of the sense like this is, my guys just need a rest too. Like, if I was actually actively coaching, I would more than likely just say I'm not.
I would tell them to go fuck themselves.
No extra travel, but the smart thing to do would be like put him in the situation where you have to see what you missed out on.
Where is Washington in the spree? It's after the major, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's after
okay.
Dallas.
Okay, so we're talking about, we don't even know what version of the fucking game we're going to be on then, do we? It's going to be wild that time of year. After the major time is going to be the deepest, darkest, most treacherous water that Counter-Strike Realm has felt in decades. It's going to be fucking dicey out there. CS2's is going to release more maps. People are going to be like, why the fuck are we still playing Source 1 when we know in a couple months' time this is going to be the full game? Everyone's going to be frothing. Everyone's going to be in there. It's going to be post-major roster shuffle. It's happening, boys. It's all going to be happening.
I can't wait for the next map to come out on CS2.
I think so also, well, this is the problem. The game is, until the summer, it's still in testing phase, right? So, I don't think Valve will be comfortable enough to let it be played in tournaments and broadcast to thousands and thousands of people, right? Although probably for the TOs, shit, that was nasty by Axel. Well, probably from the TOs perspective, they would love to do it because it would be bring a ton more viewers for two tournaments that are, probably not as appealing during that time. The summer is starting, less viewership and all of that stuff. But yeah, I don't think we'll see it until the second half of the season, until it's officially out. And how it is. Valve might always just come in and say, "Listen, we need 3 more months to make this game good," right? Like we thought it would be ready by summer, it's not, and then they push it back, and that would suck, right? If it eats into the second half of the season, and then you have the first couple of tournaments on CS:GO, then mid-season it switches to CS2. Like, that's kind of sucky. That's what Simple, the first thing he said on the couch at Pro League was like, just make it a clean break.
Yeah, clean break. Yeah, and that's going to be one of the most curious things, because I don't imagine the competitive Counter-Strike community gets too much of a say in how that unfolds. They can definitely have their input and stuff, but if it's ready, if it's not, it's not. So we'll have to wait and see how that one goes. I was just thinking, Yanko, when I'm looking at these names in the server, and we're talking about Cloud9 being grinders, and I know these guys didn't do it together, but don't you think like players like Flames, Neofrag, and Fiku all kind of came from those realms as well?
Yeah.
Before they made it onto our screens. So they're little grinders. They're probably frothing at the bit. Like, they've said, "Yeah, boys, Rugger's coming. He's not going to." Said, "Hey, boys, we're going to play. Boys. I got a fucking treat for you, boys. We're going to play 2 best of 3s today, and don't you worry, lads. We'll get Mirage in both of them." And they're just fucking like ravenous dogs, just saliva going everywhere. The prospect of Flames running around like a madman, one tapping people with AK on Mirage, Dexter pushing through connector smokes. Like, they love it. They can't get enough of it.
I mean, it's a massive change, especially for some of the guys who come from FPL, even, right? Because you just grind so much in that, especially FPLC, to make it into the FPL. It's 100 plus matches, or I don't know how many, close to 200 matches a month. Does that sound right? Yeah, I think it does sometimes, right? So you're used to playing so much, and then all you do is sort of practice and don't have as many competitive official games, and it's just a weird feeling, because then you can put extra unnecessary pressure on yourself in the officials, because you're like, okay, these are so rare for us, they matter so much, and I don't want to screw up. So you don't end up taking, you play more passive than you're used to, you don't play your own game, you don't play your own style, and that's counterproductive.
I've got a wild question here. Like, all this talk, especially because we're talking about getting like reps in, we're also talking about online games and stuff. And I was just thinking, all those years ago, we used to have such an issue because players were constantly traveling to events, right? And they were never at home. And then we had the polar opposite of that contrast. Oh, Shiro, that was nice. The contrast of having only online Counter-Strike during the pandemic, and now being back to it's a hybrid, but it's not really a hybrid. Let's say that, like, for these top teams, some of them don't play online at all. They just don't have to, right? That never comes into their remit. But what if there was like a way that, well, I'm saying this, we used to have this. We discussed this already. It was how Pro League used to be done. It used to be done online. Because like when Pro League would run for long periods of time, that was a period of time when people got to stay at home, but you were still also playing CS. And now online Counter-Strike, we're talking about the benefits of it, getting in more maps, making sure that you're feeling a bit warmer and more ready to go on certain maps, or just in general with actual matches of CS. It kind of feels like it has a twofold benefit, other than the fact that online Counter-Strike leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth that it isn't as pure as LAN CS. So then we just keep returning to that old fucking chestnut.
I think to take it the opposite direction and take a positive spin on it as well, like you can say it's actually awesome. Like, yeah, these games are online, but it's so awesome now that there's so many good teams and interesting teams that the qualifiers are now extremely interesting as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Like at least it's interesting. Like you can talk about it now. It's not the way it used to be. So I think it's pretty sick that we have these things where it's getting this much hype. I mean, it's great for
that
the
is
viewership
true.
of Counter-Strike.
Yeah. There's definitely, I'm just like looking at some of the RMR groups now. There's definitely a couple that are like, oh, what are they really going to do on LAN here, right? Are they going to have any bite to the bark? And some of them will, and some of them won't, right? Some of the better teams are going to be warded off. Right, they'll easily just be able to pat some of these guys in the nose. But somebody like Sprout, who's more of an established name now compared to, I don't know, a team like Into the Breach or Viperio, Sprout, considering their recent form and how things haven't really been working out for them, that might be some tough fucking matches for them, right? That's not a guarantee that Sprout are going to have lock-ins in those games. Because there's, who else we get? Like, I'm looking at what we should probably do is get all 32 of the teams in the EU RMR and like rank them from 1 to fucking 32.
Yeah.
Like, it will get real dark down the bottom and we won't really be working with a lot of data, but it would be interesting to see like how we foresee this, because there's been a bit more chat starting to heat up on the airwaves now about how unbalanced the EU RMR group looks compared to the A version, right? The B one has Heroic, Cloud9, Big, Ants, Vitality, NIP, Spirit, G2, Astralis, Fours are in there as well. And that can be pretty scary group, right? Nine's in there, which have been doing all right with Hades Boys, Eternal Fire. We know that they're always worth an upset. So there's definitely conversation here that this group is wild, but I think another point of this is it only becomes scary because we're getting closer to it, and now we can accurately measure up and see which teams are looking strong at the moment and which are looking a little bit more, right? So when these groups had to be locked in this way, how long ago would it have been now?
I'm not sure.
So yeah, it's.
But also, I mean, when we asked players at like Pro League about like RMR groups, like some of them didn't even know who they were matched up against, like who they were in the group with. I remember asking them during like the opening week, and they were like, "Oh, we have." I was like, "Oh, you got this team like is in your group, and then you're playing them in like 4 weeks at the RMR next month." They were like, "Oh, we didn't. I didn't know that. I didn't even know the groups were out." It was like, "Oh, okay, well, yeah,
yeah." Well, like there's some weird examples out there. There's some weird examples out there at the moment. So Cloud9 have to play against Fours in the final of this Bet Boom tournament, which is the third online tournament Cloud9 have been playing in this like just spree. They had to beat Godsent to get to this final. They were Falcons as well, so they were brought in the quarterfinals. And then I think there's actually like decent prize money. There's $165,000 available for this Bet Boom playlist urbanistic 2023 fucking. Let me read that again in case people aren't fucking. Bet Boom playlist urbanistic 2023. That's the name of the event.
165,000 first place, man.
I like it.
Yeah, that's a lot of cheddar, man.
Pro League was 200K.
That's fucking crazy, isn't it?
Right.
That's nuts.
And this is an online tournament, which has meant that if Cloud9 are to win, they will have won 3 best of 3s in a row, and the teams that would have beaten are Falcon, Godsents, and Fours. Right? Fours actually beat VP and Mouse on that spread. That's pretty fucking... And Bad News Eagles. That's really good from Fours. That's a great list of names to have if you're on your way to 165K. Damn. Fours out here doing work.
Yeah, Fours looks good at Pro League.
But just before we dive full into RMR, this is a little bit tied into it, but I want to close it off. The showdown thing and Liquid and, of course, Furia, because they ended up... They lost to EG Black.
Black.
In the first game to
with
Junior.
George.
To George and to Junior, who, obviously played for Furia for a little while.
He went nuts, didn't he?
Yeah, he went ham in the whole series, third map too. So for Liquid, the scary thing is, obviously, I think it meant a lot more to them considering the finals are in Washington, right? And I'm sure they want to qualify. And the second thing is, that's the second loss in a row to Pain. I mean, they lost to Pain in the...
Oh, yeah, Pain fucked though.
Obviously, the playoff game in Pro League, right? And now also in this qualifier for the spring finals. So that's worrisome for Liquid, right? Like, I know you and me, Chad, both, we really liked Pain and how they play that Pro League, the brand of CS that they play, and they seem like a well-rounded squad, and they're just likable guys as well whenever they were on the couch, right? But I mean, that's a team Liquid should at least not lose 2 times in a row. Like, it's fine if they lose to them once, shit happens, but 2 times in a row, also in a manner in which, they had a strong lead, I believe, that they gave up, and again, it's Nuke in there, one more time.
It's also like the extra gut punch of being like, if you're gonna talk about how bad practice is in the Americas, like, you can't then when you get beat by teams that have risen up through those scenes, and obviously the Brazilian scene different to a degree, but I mean they're also playing in the Americas qualifiers for things, so that's like the extra gut punch to your excuse in a way.
Yeah, so for me, for Liquid, like, that's a bit of a problem, and more than I would say for Furia, because of course the game was like I was asleep, I wake up, I see these notifications on my Twitter, Brazilians just, oh, YNK is like, oh, you must be so happy right now, and I'm like, what the hell happened? And then I see Furia lost to EG Black, and I'm like, guys, actually, I don't care about Furia. Like, I'm not emotionally invested in their results. I just think they should be doing better than what they are, and I was very clear about what I think the reasons for that are, And then you see them losing a game like that, and also they were up like 13-6 or whatever on the last map. I think it was the fadeaway rush 2K that they ended up going for the defuse, and Furia doesn't win a single round from that point on. I mean, again, those are also some things that shouldn't really happen. On top of that, like, they play Mirage, which was Furia's pick, and they win 2 rounds on T side. Like, I mean, like, that's just those are some embarrassing displays. There's no other way around it. Like, that's we all talk about EG as the worst tier 1 team, and this is their second team beating you, in a game. And but on the other hand, I will say, how much does Furia care about the showdown and like being there for the spring finals? Probably not all that much. And if anything, this might be like a really, really good wake-up call from them leading up to the RMRs. It's like all hands on deck, which it should have been by now anyway, but okay, let's say. And if this has helped them wake up and put extra work and extra focus into their preparation for the RMR and then the major, like, okay, then in the big picture, they won't care too much about this result. But on the other side, if this is just a sign of things to come and how much Furia has potentially deteriorated or fallen, and if, God forbid, they fail to make it out of the RMR, I mean, at that point, the changes are imminent. Like, there's no way you don't make significant changes to your roster. And if your only change is like minus drop plus someone else, then fuck off. Like, then you know.
But isn't it like, so this is curious. Fury didn't have a great start to the year with Katowice, right? It was disappointing there as well. I forgot who they lost to. Let me go back and check, but I know that it was.
No.
Didn't they get knocked out by IHC in the plans, the last game of the plans?
No, Big knocked them out. It was the Keto game where he had like 1,000 kills, I think. Cloud9 got knocked out by IHC.
Oh, that's right.
Holy shit, I forgot. Wow, and that was this year. What?
Oh, no, they got knocked out by IHC too.
Yeah.
Shit. Oh, yeah, it was Big first, then IHC. Mate. Holy shit. Yeah, you're right, Jason. Sorry, my bad.
All right, so regardless, right? Whereas either way, they were knocked out by a team of their caliber shouldn't have been knocked out by. Now they lost another match or qualifier, and again, online Counter-Strike. So once again, we know this is difficult to weight correctly, but it's more about, I guess, what it does to, if the confidence of a team is already low and then they lose that game and it is to EG, in that fashion, at that point, then maybe the team morale is like quite low. It really depends on what expectations they set when going into that. And I think that was important that you pointed that out, Yanko, in the sense that if they don't really care about it, then it's not going to do much harm. But if the team really wanted to qualify and then they didn't make it, maybe they're all just got home and they're all jet lagged or whatever. There's a lot of different things that you could talk about as reasons. But as long as the team mentally is okay with the loss, and I'm not saying it's ever okay to be okay with losses, but understanding the context behind it, then that could also shape their destiny.
I always found those were the super deflating losses. Like those ones where like you go home and you have like, you are tired from travel and it is online and you just get completely upset. Like those were always the hardest games because we lost a couple of them as Liquid even in the online era when I was there. Those were the most deflating, it felt like.
Should those teams though? No, I don't want to. I know where this conversation goes. I'm gonna.
No, but I just want to cut you off.
Suck it back up.
That's a really good point, and it is a different conversation how much stock they put into the game. But here's the thing: when the disparity between teams is that big, like Furia playing 50% should be beating EG Black. No discussion about it, right? Like your C game,
top 8 at the last major.
Your C game top 4. Your C game needs to be good enough. Like you should be beating them on your C game, which this tells us either that Furia didn't play their C game even, or that their C game is maybe just poorer,
not good enough
than we thought, right? And I don't think you can go into like I've had tournaments like this where we don't really, it's not the end of the world. It doesn't define your team and doesn't mean much for your team. But still, we can't go in and lose to some noobs. I mean, okay, EG Black are not noobs, but I mean, like if this tournament doesn't mean too much for you and you go in and you lose to like Pain or Liquid or even Imperial, but then again, I can make a case for Pain and Imperial. Those are Brazilian teams. You don't want to lose to the Brazilian team because you're the top dog in Brazilian Counter-Strike, right? But you just can't lose to those teams because it's just embarrassing. It's embarrassing for the brand, for the players, and just as players and as team, is that really the way you want to handle yourself? Like, is that really the vibe you're going for in your team? Is like, we don't care about the showdown. Are you as Furia really in a position to not care about any tournament you participate in? Are you the number 1 team in the world? No. Are you top 5 team in the world? No. When was the last time you won fuck all? That's right. Never. So you are a team that should play every single match to win, not just to win, but to dominate.
All right, so maybe they do care that they lost, but then that's where you start going down the path of, well, if that's the case, then they should be looking at making some changes because this team is not going to keep winning, right? That's how we get down that rabbit hole.
I mean, dude, I said it's a year now that they've said that Art needs to go, right? And now I can just add a drop to that conversation, and that's it. I mean, I don't want to sound like a parrot and just repeat the same things over and over again, but those are the 2 changes you absolutely need to make. And also, not knowing the inner dynamics within the team, maybe the coach needs to go too, because either he's enabling the Art or he's letting it happen. Both are bad. So I think that's just what they need. They need a significant cut. They need a fresh start. I know Art's been with Yuri and Xerato from the start, and that's going to be weird and difficult and everything. But, are you in it to play with friends or are you in it to win trophies? Xerato doesn't know how it feels like to win a tournament. He does not know how it feels. Like an a tier 1, tier 2 even Counter-Strike tournament on LAN. He doesn't know the feeling of lifting that fucking trophy. Let that sink in. Let that sink in for everyone. He doesn't know. He doesn't know it. He's never felt that feeling. And he's been playing like a top 3, top 5 rifler in the world without a doubt. In the last, not this year, not last year, probably last 2 years from this point on. If that's my feeling. Like mid 2021, he got really, really rolling. He's been very good for a long time, but last 2 years, he's been absolutely incredible. And look at someone like Cold, who they maybe are a little bit similar or not, but look how long Cold's prime lasted. Right? Like the trophy winning prime and all of that stuff. Like, you're not gonna play this good forever. So you better have the right pieces around you, which is what Cole had for a while, and they were able to win a lot. Cole was very good even in, he was still a very good player in MIBR when I was there. He was still pretty good, I feel like, in phase. Like he could contribute a lot and do his job and help us win. But when the pieces around, the pieces weren't always right around it. So you do have some guys who are really good, but then maybe you're missing one or two players, or you need 4 more months to get really good as a team. Maybe you don't have that time like we thought we had it, and then COVID hit, and then everything went to shit, right? But that's the problem. This shit. If you're a Furia fan and you're like, this will get better, and we have Xerato. Xerato's not always going to be a top 5 rifler in the world. You know how insane that is, like, to have a player that good, and then also Yuri as sort of the complementary player to that equation. Like, you're wasting his prime. Like, you're running out of time.
I think there's a potential in-game leader. I'm not saying replacement of Fury now, but Yankee, you know how we're always talking about trying to build like a Brazilian dream team. I feel like Big Yazura has to have put his hat in the ring for conversation for the Brazilian in-game leader right now. He's taken this role over from PKL when he left. Now Big Yazura is doing it, and the guy has a 1.14 rating, third highest in his team, and is constantly contributing in all of their matches.
Yeah, I think his
right?
curse is only that he's not as famous or not as known, and we don't see Pain as often. So, like that's the thing, he's not as talked about. And I've also just been Googling, their coach too, because he must be doing like a good job as well to help him out with that. It's very difficult, to a player who hasn't really done the role before to get him into it, especially if it's a strong player too. So you want him to still be able to play well and contribute in the fragging department. But yeah, there's a lot of names in there.
Yeah, I think it's one of these, like this might become like a cycle, and it's something that we only get to identify while we're in it. But we know that Swedish and Polish Counter-Strike are either currently going through it or have gone through it. It really depends on what stages of their rebirth you think. But like of countries which we know can be really, really good at the game, there's periods of time where that country isn't as good as it can be, right? And then eventually like the correct mix of players will come together, or there'll be a new batch of talent that'll come through. Like I think we're seeing that a little bit with Nine at the moment. The Polish guys with Key and Kyla alongside of Hades, like they look like they have some really good pieces there. And there's a lot of exciting like Polish players that have been going for a long time. Maybe there's like one that's the missing piece of the puzzle, who fucking knows? Or maybe this is like a team that might be finding some success. Sweden still hasn't been able to crack the code, but Godsent are showing like okay results, I guess. It's nothing.
They won't
really
do anything ever.
Those two scenes, it feels like about like rebuilding over the past like 2 or 3 years, and this is just like the first step to like the recovery. Like, did you see
I don't know if Brazil needs to rebuild. It's still quite furious in terms of the floodgates of talent. It's just about putting them together.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, it's just interesting watching that kind of play out. And did you see that? There was another tweet the other day that was NIP and Fnatic for the first time in like history have played with like not majority Swedish lineups on either organization.
Yeah, I saw that.
Sweden is just decimated with young talent. They've been talking about it for a while. Some of the older players too.
It's a bit of a shame, right? It's a bit of a shame, but I understand why they're doing it. They're trying to stay competitive quickly, right? They tried the nurturing the younger generation to see if they could get players up to snuff. They couldn't, but maybe that's half the battle as well. Like some of these teams, we hear about it, the power of friendship and playing with my mates and coming, and having that bond of actually wanting to play with a group of people and grinding through. At the lower levels, I feel that's really important. Right? Because maybe out of those teams, one guy ever becomes good enough to play at like a higher tier of Counter-Strike. But as a team, you're all trying to grow to that goal. In an academy roster, essentially you're there hoping you perform well enough in this environment that you can get picked up for the main squad. So I don't know. I'd love it if we could get back some fucking national teams, but I see why they don't want to do it. I understand it. It makes a lot of sense. And maybe that's another
perspective too. Yeah.
But maybe that becomes another problem for places like America, right? Who it's like struggling to compete. Yeah, okay. Well, guess who isn't? Twists. He's a very good player playing in a European team, and I know that he's Canadian. But my point stands that like if Elige went to a European team, for example, right, where could we see him fit? What European team could he play for? Could he find like a lot of impact? It just sucks. We're
NAF is
losing
already
our.
openly talking about it. You know, in
He
his interviews,
is?
he's hinting that he's saying I want to one day play for a European team. He
Oh,
said
shit.
he said it in like 2 or 3 interviews.
Okay, that's a perfect example then.
Yeah.
That's scary though, right? If like everybody's just going to end up on international teams. I hope there is a pivot back at some point. And this isn't just the time with that World Cup conversation we're having, but I feel like
well, you want to go into a deep conversation about it with Liquid? What's the problem they face in a world where they have some catastrophe at the major and going into CS2? Organizationally, do you switch into a European team, or do you kind of bet that the North American scene is going to rebound? Because it surely you have to make a decision.
What were you going to say?
No, I'm just saying, like, I don't. If the North American scene is just going to be dead the way it is in CS2, then wouldn't you, in theory, from a business perspective, want to switch into a European roster, like pivot to Yakinder as the center point of your team? NAF goes over to Europe, and then you can construct a European. Like, wouldn't that be something you'd consider?
This is the question. Is there more success stories with international teams or more failed projects? Because right now, as I go down the list, right, I think G2 is working, FaZe is working, Vitality, yes and no at the same time. ENTS have positive signs, so they're on the up, but they weren't when Volda was there. Mauser also in that same conversation. Fnatic, OG, NIP in the opposite direction, right? Those 3 rosters, they're treading water, right? They're not making any ground. They're not like significantly getting better, but they're there and they can compete at a high level. But I don't see those teams winning a trophy that's notable, specifically. So for me, it's like, okay, you might be onto something here, Jason, in terms of, well, if things are still fucked in North America for Liquid, then yeah, maybe they look to go international. But there's some of these teams which are clearly not working and some that are. That's the punt. That's the gamble. And I guess you have that with a national-based team as well, but at least you're helping the nation.
Yeah.
At least there's that little semblance of fucking hope left in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd lose a strong fan base as well. They're in kind of a weird spot.
Yeah, and that's another and I feel that then that trickles down and it affects the grassroots of the game because and I know I'm putting my boomer pants back on again, and I know I fucking am doing this more and more, but I am only getting older by the second. But like the cool idea of playing in a local LAN cafe, just as a guy. I went to this LAN cafe as like a fucking 12-year-old, and I was playing Habbo Hotel, and I saw people playing Counter-Strike. So I started playing Counter-Strike. Maybe I was 13 or 14. Either way, I was young. And then I'm playing Counter-Strike with these people, and then it's like, oh, there's team Counter-Strike, let's make a team. And then we make a team, and then we're competing at local LANs. And then I'm traveling, like I'm competing at an event at the LAN cafe I go to. And then I'm going to another LAN cafe that's like a 20-minute drive away, and we're having a competition there. And then, WCG qualifier rolls around, and I go to the LAN cafe for the state, for Western Australia. And if you qualify there, then you go to the national, and you get on an aeroplane. And then you qualify there, and you go and you play in the big event with everybody else.
Chad, that's old
the
school
good old
esports.
days,
That's
man.
old. That is some boomer shit, but I'm with you. That was fun as fuck, just hopping in the car with like 3 guys and putting your PCs in the trunk and traveling to a LAN.
Now it's all fucking ruined. They killed Disneyland, man.
Mickey Mouse is dead.
But see how that affects the grassroots? Because I used to watch the best Australian team compete at 3 o'clock in the morning on an IRC scoreboard. Because Counter-Strike used to get my dick that hard that I cared about some guys who, I could only watch with text compete on a map somewhere in the world against other. I wanted to see how the Australian players shaped up to other countries. We all knew that Sweden was the best. But, mate, one of the Australian teams one year lost to a team from Kuwait. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, we're not even that good. Like, we got to get out training, man. Like, we the only team we should be losing it, like the Americans, you guys were pretty good. The Finns were good, right? But, I thought Australia could have at least been in a bit of a conversation, but we're getting beat. And we're still getting beat to this day, actually. But bring it back, man. Bring it back. Let the people experience
that's still
that.
DreamHack, no? DreamHack festivals are still there. There's a BYOC element.
I guess.
Yeah, but I'm
But
sure
that's
they
weird
run some
because it's
kind
these
of.
massive halls, right? So it's
Yeah.
not as intimate as you would like.
Well,
John.
the
You're all about
DreamHacks have-
intimacy.
The DreamHacks have turned more into like a trade show now. I feel like than the tournaments they used to be. They're like the event, at least in like the States, like right. It's always paired with IEM Dallas. So IEM
The
Dallas
cosplay
is the
and that stuff.
Yep, and then the Dream Show or the trade shows attached to it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Reminiscing, man.
Yeah, it's the bummer that there's no operators in North America. Like even Fragadelphia was the biggest one that had that kind of a vibe. Like Fragadelphia had that for years, and they've just kind of hit the end of the road.
But now it's blurred, right? Like this is where this rabbit hole goes in my mind. Like even back when I was competing, we still had we had the minors, right? At least that was regional, and you could prove you were the best team in the region back then. And now we're going to have RMRs as well, but kind of essentially being the same thing to that. But the Counter-Strike is so much more muddied in terms of how international it is now. Like the only people on a regular basis who are flying are like Cloud9, like Liquid, Furia. The other ones aren't all going as consistent as those two names.
Complexity.
They will go, yeah, and I guess they get a couple more chances, but yeah, we're in an interesting spot. It's not doom and gloom. It's all fine. Boy, should we talk about these RMRs?
Yeah. Okay.
Well, what are we thinking, Jason? You said you're fucking going, mate. You got your face on the poster. You're one of the headline acts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In Mexico. Yeah, Monterrey.
Well, let's start with the smaller ones, and then we'll do the EU
let's
stuff,
start
shall
off
we?
with the most important things. Were you ever in Mexico, Jason?
Yeah, I did face it in Cancun with you.
Yeah, but I mean, outside of work. Did you go to like Tijuana?
Never been to Tijuana. I've always wanted to.
Give us some dirty stories that you.
Yeah, the donkey shows down there. That was always the advertisement.
Is that the one stuck in the mud?
Yep, it's similar.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. It was funny. I've talked to my parents about that when they used to live in California. They used to go down to Mexico. It's like it was like a 2-hour drive, and they would go for the day and like eat shrimp and get a bunch of fruit and just spend the day drinking margaritas and then go home. Like it was something you could go do. Now it's a little weird, but I don't know. I'm excited to be in Monterrey. See all the boys. Scrawny and Launders and Maui are going to be there, and then some great Counter-Strike.
Yeah, so let me take a look at this here. I'm just trying to bring up all this stuff. So in the Americas side of things, Furia, Liquid, Pain, Complexity, Evil Geniuses, MIBR. Oh, the EG one is crazy. They got that spot, isn't it?
I fucking hate it. I hate everything about
that. That cracks me up. There's something cursed about that
I
happening.
don't know if they
Nation.
can even feel the roster.
Man, there's so many names here that what is even the point about talking about half of these
Shouldn't
names?
you set EG Black after the upset they just had?
I don't know if it works that way, man. They weren't playing at the qualifier with that team, right? So it's going to be curious what happens there. Oh, I didn't mention Imperial, did I? Either 00 Nation, Imperial, MIBR. Okay, 6 teams can go. I don't even want to get stuck into talking about this for long. Like,
no, there's not.
Why are we talking about this?
Right,
Let's talk about EU.
No, but do we think anyone's gonna like fuck it up? Furia, Liquid.
Well, it depends.
I'm not going to call it, but I think the potential is there.
I think Furia, Liquid are probably the 2 ones that you really could count on of making it through, regardless.
Yeah, the rest is whatever.
It's a cool storyline, right? Like a month ago, we would have said Liquid and Furia are the absolute favorites, and now it's all up in the air.
I mean, Pain with the way they've played recently and beating Liquid 2 times, you want to say that they should probably make it as well. But I can see them losing in the best of ones to, Fluxo easily. Is that their first game? No, they're playing against some Paqueta team. Pasteta.
Bruschetta?
No, but it's a Serbian thing.
No, that's a fucking...
It's like pate. But it just sounds, the name of the team, it sounds like that fucking thing. I'm sorry, it's just so funny to me.
Shit.
I mean, in the best of ones.
We've lost them.
A team like Fluxo with Phelps and Luca Ozzy and VSM, right? Like Zeus as the coach. They can do some damage. Imperial, they can make it. They cannot make it as well. I mean, it was a big thing for them to qualify for spring finals. Of course, when I said that they looked good despite being out in last place in their Pro League group, people were saying I was licking Fallen's ass. But yeah, what do I know?
It's a good question.
Jason did it better anyway.
It's the age old. Yeah, I think Fury and Liquid, even though Jason has some warning signs to them, I think they still have to be the hard locks here. If they don't qualify, it's a catastrophe for both those teams.
They should be, but would you count them as locks?
Yes, because if they aren't, the reality as I know it is upside down.
Okay.
But let's just say this. If Fury doesn't make it, obviously they're making changes. Like if they don't make changes, then I don't know. I don't want to talk about that team ever again. But if Liquid don't make it, do they make change? Because, what do you put it on? Like, what is the change that you make?
That's kind of why I posed that question earlier about like pivoting to a more international EU-based team, because it's like, what do? You have like a weird decision to make if you bomb out of this one. And I don't know who they would. Here's the problem too. Liquid, like historically, has never really been able to acclimate any of like the new generation of North American players into the roster. Like the European teams have gotten very, very good at bringing young European players in, and Liquid either doesn't have the confidence in them individually, or has just never been able to replicate the same success they had on their rise. It's been like a really weird situation for them. So that's like a very damning problem of a team. If you're not able to do that, then you're just kind of stuck at a certain point, which I think is probably where they're feeling right now.
I see what you're saying. And I think that with that NAF information that you've bestowed upon us, I think interesting conversations alongside of the great migration to the Counter-Strike 2 will open up, right? This next major could determine an awful lot of scenarios, knowing that the major runway is a lot wider now. Teams have a lot more time to at least discuss the ideas of roster changes. And see which are the best directions to go in the future. So, look, I think anything becoming possible with what you've highlighted here today, Mr. Jason Moses O'Toole. So I like the conversation. I don't know that it's the best for North American Counter-Strike, but it might be the best for Liquid.
It's horrible for North American Counter-Strike, but yeah, that's the perspective.
And that's exactly what you want, Jason.
Like imagine this, right? If in the scenario you're talking about, you say, okay, Liquid decide they want to go international. Well, we all know that being in Europe, it makes the most sense in terms of practice and everything like that. You don't have to travel as much. One reason why I live in Europe is so I don't have to travel all the way from Australia every single time. That's why I made the sacrifice of not living anywhere near my family and moving to fucking Europe because I'm insane. But, let's say NAF says he wants to play for a European team. Well, you keep Yakinda, you keep NAF. They're your two starting pieces. They can already both live in Europe. Bang. That was a nice round from Uncle Hobnob.
That was a great round.
You've got NAF and Yakinda. You pick up 3 Europeans. Bang.
Yeah.
You make Phase V3.
Yep. I think it's kind of a cool idea going into CS2. But I don't
Get
know.
Nazgul on the phone. Let's sell it.
Yeah.
Clip it and ship it.
You can be the code, Jason.
Yeah. I'm only doing this if I'm the coach. Oh, never mind. That's going to be a decision they have to make. I don't know. That's just an interesting one. I don't.
All right, let's talk about Europe.
Yeah.
Right. So
chat is done with.
I'm not even talking about Asia because like the thing that I will say in case there are any Australians listening, there's a second Australian team there. It's now another one. Right. This is another Australian team. This is called Vertex. You will know maybe 2 of the names. Malta obviously used to play for Renegades, and Hazza came with LFO over to that Pro League season. They're playing with Addict, PZ, and Brace. And they have Kingfisher, who is the old coach of Greyhound, coaching them. And that's about it. It's going to be a test for Greyhound if they can take on Mongols, Rare Adam, and Tai Lu, I suppose. These aren't going to be easy beats. Dude, fucking Davcost is there. Davcost is playing with Face Crack.
Holy shit.
What the fuck? Anyway, let's not stray too far from the beaten path.
That's pretty crazy, actually.
Let's get back to Europe. Let's get back to where everything feels normal, feels as it should do, feels safe. Group A.
Yeah.
Group A. Okay, I'm gonna list some names here, gentlemen. We can just talk about whichever ones we want. VP, Mouse, Fnatic, Na'Vi, FaZe, Sprout, Bad News Eagles, Bait or B8, Viperio, Into the Breach, One Win, Apex, Gamer Legion, OG, Falcons, and Saw.
What's Gamer Legion been up to? I feel like I haven't heard their names since the...
Doing a bit of losing.
Okay.
Yeah, hasn't been a lot of winning.
There you go, Jason. Now you know.
Yeah. Perfect.
No, well, that's the thing. You would have heard more about them if they were winning.
they've been like doing a lot of winning. It's just they always lose in like the finals of like these smaller tournaments that they're in.
And people only care if you win the whole enchilada, Jason.
And
we know that.
At that stage, it's the headline of winning the event that gets you up there.
I see what you mean. Like in the European Open qualifier for Dallas, they lost to Epic Dudes after beating Falcons. And Epic Dudes, it's 5 Germans that you've never heard about.
I think they had server issues. I know Kios was tweeting about some server stuff. And I have seen a lot of people talking about the ESCA client as well, which we have spoken about on this very show before, and our opinions on what they should do with it. So they're crazy. You should go listen to them.
I liked Gamer Legion at the last RMR. That would have been sweet. I wanted to see like the excitement around Acorn Suhi just keep going.
Yeah, well, there was a bit of groundswell around them, wasn't there?
Yeah. What else is going on over there? I mean, that's a scary. These groups
but it's
are
not
insane.
as stacked as the other group. The other group's much more like in terms of bigger names. The other group is a lot scarier. I think someone like averaged out where the teams were ranked in the world.
Let's stick with this one for now because the team that Gamer Legion is playing in their opening game is Apex, and that's J-Kim. You get to see J-Kim again. He was really good, man, in those Renegades 100 Thieves teams.
A very solid rifle.
Yeah, Stiko. Haven't seen him in a while too. Knock. He was the opper for NIP before they brought in Device. And then you have JL, the Lithuanian, who's been in some of these different international teams for a while. And Kixan, the Macedonian, he was the part of that Blue Jays roster with Kakanito as well.
Yes. Okay.
I think he was the in-game leader for them, so I'm not sure if he's in-game leading this.
Yeah, he's in-game leading here. That's why he was brought in. He's doing the leadership stuff. Like Stiko tried it for a little while, wasn't his cup of tea. Kixon is the man in charge. He's the guy.
And they also have Kuben as the coach.
Yes. Yeah. He came over to this project, I think, alongside of JL. I'm not sure if they came at the exact same time.
Yeah,
Maybe he came first and then brought JL. Yeah. But I think that they fall into a similar category for me as like Apex, Gamer Legion. I'm going to say this, even though they probably should be one. They're a rung higher. Apex, Gamer Legion, Bad News Eagles, a Sprout. They're all in like a same bucket for me. I'm interested.
Asa is back. I forgot about that.
Sprout. But things haven't been going well. Yanko, take a look at some of the fucking matches, man. It's not fucking.
It's not pretty.
It's not all sunshine and rainbows out there.
It never is.
Yeah, you need to take an L before you can really appreciate the dub. You know, they've played 25 matches
before you walk. Before you run.
They're getting back into it.
I mean, when was his last match competitively? Before this Proud thing, did you check?
He would have played some stuff in Oz for like Encore, but in terms of like proper Counter-Strike,
European Counter-Strike or NA for that matter.
Yeah, well, I think we're talking with Extremum, which was back in like October of 21, right before they got dropped. That Extremum clip was like a weird, roller coaster, wasn't it?
Yeah. Then they lost to EG in the NARMR for Stockholm. And that they didn't have enough points because of that one match, even though they were way higher in the previous RMRs, and that kind of ruined the team.
Screwed the pooch, some might say. Yeah, I don't know. I put them all in a similar basket, that bunch of teams right there, as like there is a good opportunity that these teams could qualify. They're kind of on the fringe. Like I think VP Mouse, I wouldn't say Fnatic are a lock at all. I think Fnatic are very beatable. But the thing with Fnatic is their default style should beat a lot of the minnows here, right? Like they should be able to put away like Into the Breach or Viperio or even a one win, which has like Boomich. Boomich is back, boys. Boomich is back with some fucking backup. He's back with Nickelback, Forrester, Travis, and Deco. So he's not back on his own. He's back with some boys. The boys have come around. So I think Nickelback is doing the in-game leading over there, and Boomich is just looking for frags. But Forrester's good. I think Deco's good. Travis has had his moments in the past. So
They
there's,
got
I don't
Hooch in
know.
there as the coach. That's not
Yes.
bad. I
Oh,
mean,
good old
he's
Hooch.
worked with Entropic too. Forrester was on that team, Nickelback as well. So he's familiar with some of the players on the team. I think Hooch is probably like good to deal with some of these, where maybe someone like Deco, who is a little bit infamous for having maybe an attitude or whatever. And I think Hooch, with all his experience and just the type of a guy he has no problem telling him to shut the fuck up and do as he's told. For example, which is
Sure.
what you really do need to say to some of these younger players every now and again. So yeah, that could be interesting. This is the thing about this RMR is so wild for Europe. Like there's so many teams, and then the fucking best of ones, dude. Like that's the thing you can't underestimate. Not only the best of one in its own, the psychological effect that playing a best of one has on the big teams, on the favorites, right, coming into the matchup, and just as the matchup develops, right, there's so much pressure because in a best of one, any little mistake, one loss to Pistols can turn the game on its head, and you might end up losing and put yourself in the hole. And then because of your seeding or whatever, your Valve ranking points, the 0-1 game is actually against a pretty good team too, and then you can lose that in like overtime, like the smallest of details, and then you're in a 0-2 hole, right? And sure, you get to best of threes, but like the mental toughness, man, is probably more important than your than how you're going to play, because you are going to play good. Like if you have good players, you've been a team for a while, like your Counter-Strike is probably good enough at this point to win. The problem is if you don't play your game because you're feeling too much of the pressure and you're playing not to lose instead of playing to win. That's exactly what happened to G2 at the last one, right? At the Rio RMR. You guys want to go back, watch those games, you will see how pressure looks like on the server. And then you go and you watch G2 play at the Abu Dhabi tournament or in Katowice, and you will see it's two completely different teams, like in how many moves they're making, how they're being proactive, and how they're playing to win instead of not to lose. That's all there is to it.
I'm thinking with all this you're throwing out there, Yanko, right? Like the best of one, this, and I kind of think in the bigger scheme of things, this would be the one event every year. Well, it'd be twice a year technically, but this would be the event that you would want to be the event that fucking takes 2 weeks, right? That like if it meant that it was best of threes for every game, and with this caliber of teams who are here, because the matchups and how tight it is. Like last time round, like you got bait here in this group. Last time round, they made it to the 2-2 match and lost to Gamer Legion in that game, right? And Gamer Legion made it, and they were making waves. Like we were paying attention to Gamer Legion. We're like, oh fuck, like Gamer Legion, but these guys could have made it, and we could have been talking about fucking Wrinkle on the AWP and Captain Kirk. Sorry, is it Kurtka? Anyway, Captain Kurt, get him fucking out there. He's out there fragging. Like he seems pretty handy to me. So we could have been talking about different teams, like with one game of difference here. And because this is the most hype, because we know that everybody had to qualify from some point of like earning it. They weren't like grandfathered in, or they weren't like brought into it because they're a part of the team. Like I would love it if the RMRs took 2 weeks and every game was a best of three. It was fucking. It's the most cutthroat, most. Like the major, do we all agree that it's the most important event of the year is the major?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So then by that logic, for all players, I don't mean just for like the best players and the best events, the second most important event of the year would have to be the RMRs.
Well, no.
High tier players, no. But for like everybody, if you put everybody down to their base level, then it would have to be the RMRs.
Yeah, it's certainly going to increase the importance.
I understand where you're going with this. Like, yes, as a stepping stone to the major, yes, but
because it's
like
disconnected from the major, right? So it's standalone. And I know you had to qualify to get there in different ways, but it's essentially a standalone event, right? Where your trophy is being in the top 50%, right, or a little bit less than that, but. Right, like because by qualifying for the major, this guarantees you money. And if you're not a team who's a partner team or part of a big org, like not only does it mean you can compete with the world's best, you make a payday. So it's like for the everyman, it's a really important part of the circuit every year. Even if you go into the major and you bomb out, right? Like you now have your name in the lights, your players who are being spoken about. You have, if things continue the way they do, sticker and signature money that is coming through the door. Like it opens up a lot of avenues for you as an individual and a team potentially. Like if you're a really good individual and you're on one of these rosters and it's like Bait, for example, and like, let's just say Captain, old boy Captain, he fucking rolls on in and he just shreds. And Na'Vi are like, well, you know what? MPL's not fucking working. Let's get the fucking captain in here, right? Like that's just a hypothetical, but that it can springboard so many people. So for me, I'm just let's make it fucking 2 weeks long. Make the RMRs 2 weeks long.
I can't agree with that. Wait, so
every game's best of 3. You don't want best of 1s, right? We're gonna have to make the event 2 weeks long to get your best of 3s the whole way through the Swiss. It's the only way logistically, Yanko, I can make it happen.
Watching Viperio playing into the breach in the best of 3.
But I can't do anything about it, Yanko. We have to. The game has to be played.
Yeah.
I see.
You see,
I think from like, go on.
No, but it's just like the format is still off. Like the major circuit is still off, right? Because we shouldn't have to make that choice, Chad.
Well, but is it though? Like I like that we're talking about how cutthroat this qualifier is going to be. Isn't that a good thing?
Well,
Yeah.
It's going to be cutthroat because the format is unfairly skewing into the favor of the lower tier teams.
Well, but that's the thing,
And
right
I'm
there.
not only saying this because of the fact that it's a best of 1 and you can snowball. Also because what makes a good team good, one of the things is the depth of their map pool. But if you put it down to a best of 1, I mean, you don't have to play 3 maps the whole tournament if you don't want to. I mean, not the whole tournament, but in the best of 1 phase, that makes it way easier. Like that hides some of your flaws, right? I mean, imagine if G2 could play. If every best of 3 series they can get Nuke and Inferno, I mean, they're going to win a lot of tournaments.
No, I know what you're saying, but the thing is, you brought up format here as a limiting factor as to why it could potentially be more cutthroat, right? So let's remove that limiting factor by making every game a best of 3, but we can't get that done in the same time frame of 4 days.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, when I'm going to just be selfish. It's what I want, which is no best of 1s. It's more days, so people who work it get more money. The only ones who, get fucked by it are the players, and it's about time those motherfuckers start getting fucked. So, although actually the players will love it too because they won't be out by losing best of 1s. So
everyone wins.
the only people who lose are, I guess, someone from the schedule because it's longer than it's supposed to be. So maybe the TOs suffer a little bit, but
this is what I'm saying, though. It's in my mind, with the structure that we built right now, it's the second most important event in the whole calendar year, right? Like in terms of the gravitas it has on what it could possibly mean. So when you think about it that way, let's say that it took, I don't know, fucking 7 days to run a 16-team best of 3 Swiss bracket, right? Like let's say it took did I say 7 days, whatever it is. But the biggest issue we have is like the tier's like, well, there's no way to monetize this. And okay, well, you probably can't slap the sponsors on it in the same way you could, but then we're doing something wrong. Because by everything that we've explained, it should be the second most exciting amount of Counter-Strike people watching a year because of what's on the line. So I think we got to make people see that there's nothing more cutthroat than a small team like Saw going up against fucking outsiders and how close that Inferno game was.
I have to mention that.
But that's why, because of the emotions it evokes.
That's pain. That's like
Counter-Strike, man.
Pain is
but don't you
that situation, and also because outsiders know they're gonna fall apart and Nikinder's gonna leave, and they just
isn't it better having don't those moments come along more often? I understand all your points from a Counter-Strike point of view, but don't those moments come along a lot more often if you make it best of 1 and you give the lesser teams a little bit more of an advantage, like having a handicap? So I'm just going to say, I like having these best of 1s to start the RMR.
Oh.
I don't mind it at all. I actually really, really like it. I like those.
Russell Crowe. Are you not entertained?
Like there is so much more intensity and there is so much more potential for failure, and it is a huge deal. And I think Chad, thought that these are just like the second most important events. I think you're not wrong. I think you're just a little bit early on it. I think they will get there. I think they're building up to it now because we have so many good teams and we have so many good storylines coming into them. And I think eventually it's going to catch on to that. But the TOs are very focused on their own products, so these sometimes don't get that love they deserve. But I think the nice thing about it is, since these are open to the community often as well, like you can get so much more creativity from different creators and different parts of the scene involved in this. So I think these are going to build up organically their own way. I think you're just a little bit like maybe a year ahead.
I think also I'm going to play devil's advocate to myself.
Okay, here we go.
Say, actually, the best of ones might be a good thing because look at, again, G2. Look at what they did to G2, right? Like, they've understood why they've lost some of those games. It's because the pressure affected them too much. So they understood that they need to find a way to deal with that shit. Like, the pressure is always going to be there because of one thing or another. So you need to find a way to sort of harness that instead of letting it affect you in a negative way. And they've managed to do that, and they're playing, much better CS. They won Katowice. They're, one of the best teams we have at the moment. Like, they've unlocked their potential essentially thanks to that. And sure, what makes a great team is their map pool and, the depth of the map pool. But also what makes them great is fucking playing well under pressure. So if you're a really great team, then you need to have a way, you need to be able to deal with the fact that it is going to be best of one. It is probably going to be, it's going to be a little bit more difficult if you don't get rolling or if you have a really slow start. But that's just the reason why you need to be that much better at not starting off slow, right? At hitting the ground running, at always playing to win and not playing not to lose, right? Because it's very clear when you watch a best of one happen, and an upset happen, whether, this team just got a little bit lucky and, won a lot of key rounds and, whatever, or, did they just play with balls and the favorite was playing with no balls?
Yeah.
And if that happens, if that's why you lost, well, then it's not really the best of one. That's the problem. The problem is your mental game, right? Like, why did you play like that? What's the reason for it? Oh, yeah, but there's so much on the line. Well, that's your problem.
And that's competition.
Exactly,
that's literally
right?
Competition. Like, I think that's one of the keys here is, like, I think you could even make an argument that the top tier teams coming into this in a best of one environment, well, no, it is true, have all the advantages over lower tier teams. Sure, you can make the argument for the lower tier team to go, yeah, but they can just be like random and they can play with no fear. Well, they're trying to gain a lot when the top team is trying to hold on to a lot. You're already paid very well in a good org. And if you're in a good org that's a partner team, then you're already guaranteed events. Whereas for these other teams, this is literally their Super Bowl. We use that when we talk about smaller teams at like a smaller event surrounded by big teams. But like for everybody else who's not an established team or player yet, it is their fucking Super Bowl. And I love the fact they get to swing for the fences. Like, it's the same thing with like notoriety around my team was beating more established teams as a complete underdog squad. We definitely weren't making anywhere near as much money. We didn't have the same resources and stuff available. We couldn't play in those same conditions, but we got a couple of upset little maps on the board there. And I like that story, and I think everybody does. And then you're bang on, Yanko. If the top players who are getting paid very good money are having a hard time being able to show up when they need to, mate, it's like when you're doing the deed. Sometimes if that motherfucker ain't working, there can be problems. You can take pills for it, but maybe it's just there's some shit in your head that ain't right at that time. You're thinking about something you shouldn't be thinking about. Or, you got some other shit going on in your life and the soldier ain't coming to work, So that's the same in competition. You got to make sure you can show up and compete when you have to compete. And like, I don't know, look at fighting. You might go into a ring as a better not a other guy just hits like not a lucky punch, but everyone's got a puncher's chance, knocks you out. You were the better fighter. You lose the fight. That's it. You KO. GG. Okay. Well,
We've just talked ourselves into best of ones.
Let's do best of ones.
And it's also it's also the fact, just because let's see what are the matches. Let's pick something good. Just because Heroic is a much better team than 500 doesn't mean Heroic is going to beat them 50 times out of 50. Like, that's not how that works. Like, just by chance, some one time out of 50, probably way less, like one time out of 10, 500 is going to beat Heroic in that best of one game, right? And all they needed is for that to be this time,
exactly.
In that game. And actually that's like a pretty upset team. Ships is on that team, Dennis Law, like those are some of the newer, Dennis Law, Rainwaker, like those are some of the newer quote unquote guys coming from that scene. Bulgarians have always had, like, even from the get-go, decent upset teams. You go back to HSBG, and they were playing under the EFRAG name for a little while. Victor Dreamer, Bubble, those guys, Pie Leader, right? So that's probably if you're Heroic. I mean, Heroic is one of those teams that's very good at not getting upset, right? Yeah. Because they because of Cadian and their style and leadership, and he doesn't let them relax, and they're going to play to win no matter what, But that's also the point, like why it sometimes happens. Like sometimes they're just bound to happen.
Yeah.
Round 30, of course.
Of course. Well, this is the thing. Always going all the way. Nico's been playing a wild game.
Right there behind him. Like they're all there already.
Shira's only died 8 times, Yanko, and we're 30 rounds deep.
28 kills, of course.
Holy shit.
He's only died 8 times.
And it's... Oh, they won it.
Of course they have.
They have
and
to.
of course they have.
In Excel, of course. He's awake by now, had his coffee.
Dude, OG picked Mirage.
I mean, they have to. They've been picking it a lot. And they've had
I guess they don't really have a choice, but it's against the Cloud9 who are what? Like, what are we talking? 2, 4, 7 in a row? So 8 in a row now on Mirage. Yeah.
I mean, just tells you about the limitations of OG and their map pool.
And that's what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, so where were we? Are we still on RMRA?
Well, I don't know. I just wanted to... I did make a note of this, and I wanted to read this, because when I read this myself, I didn't really talk to anybody about it. I would love to hear what you two think of this.
All right.
This was to do with the trophy announcement with the Blast Major. I don't know if you guys saw the trophy that was being voted on. Did you guys catch it, Yanko?
I saw how it looks. Yeah, the 2 versions and the slime and...
Yeah, now we can have a conversation about trophies, but I don't really care to have a conversation about trophies, but I will humor one. But what I did find interesting, and I wanted to ask the opinion of you two on, was in the little release that came out with this trophy situation. There's a quote here, and it says, "Is it Faye Marlborough, head of creative solutions at Blast?" I think I might be mispronouncing that there, but that's who this is from. "If majors of the past have gone right, we want to go left. We are pivoting away from the hard lines and angles the audience traditionally sees at majors and moving towards softer lines, curved edges, and playful imagery. It's going to be really fun."
I like the way you ended that, yeah.
Well, that's what it says. That's exactly what it says.
Well, isn't the main part of that trophy the Blast logo, which is a triangle? Which is sharp edges.
Well, no, but they've dulled the edges, you see, with the goo. But my question is, what does any of this mean? So
nothing.
If majors of the past have gone right, we want to go left.
They're trying to give like a different experience that hasn't been given before, right? They're trying to create like a new vibe. I guess they just want to find some ways to make this major pop, like stand out from the rest, I would imagine.
Yeah, so that's where it takes it for me. So I'm like, okay, so what elements of the show, because my creativity now is racing. I've been given this very vague statement that is somewhat throwaway, but also I should be invested in it because it's like, well, what are they going to do different? And now I'm thinking, well, let's think about majors as a whole. The focus is on the fact it's a major, right? That's normally the case with most of the majors.
Yeah.
I know this is stupid, but I'm actually humor me here. I'm not being an idiot intentionally.
I'm with you.
So the focus is normally the major. So does that mean that the focus still has to be the major? You can't pivot away from the focus being the major. So what are we changing? I'm excited. I want to know what's coming. I want to know what hard lines and angles the audience traditionally sees at majors. What hard lines would those be? What would be a hard line that someone would traditionally see at a major that they want to move away from?
I think she's just referencing the trophies.
Wait, really? This is just about the trophy?
Yeah, she's talking about like the
this
hard
whole thing
lines
is just
and
about
angles. It's hard lines and angles of the trophy and they're going to something
I've
else.
misinterpreted this whole thing. So I am just an
I
idiot.
was like, where is he going with
I
this?
thought we were talking about the whole major.
No, mate.
It's just the
about-
trophy.
Just the trophy. Just like
Oh my God, I feel like a fucking idiot. But that's, I thought they were like, I was like, what are we doing different? Like, I was like, this is, so because I was trying to like extrapolate all these different things that they were going to change. And really, they literally just meant the trophy.
Yeah, they just meant the trophy, mate.
Are
we sure?
He's in shock.
Are we sure it's just the I'm going to link it. Read this.
Link
I'm
it.
going to, I need to read it.
I don't think this is just about the trophy.
I'm so, maybe, I don't know.
I don't think this is going to be just about the trophy. It's going to be really fun, so why can't the major looks and feels be the same? I think they're going for an overall vibe and tone shift for the major.
If majors of the past, this year Blast wants to redefine what a major could look like, introducing bots and blobs into the visual identity.
Like I wonder if some of the stage design is going to be like more rounded, right? Softer lines, curved edges, rather than like the angled desks of ESL and like square square panels everywhere and everything like that. So I think maybe they're just going to try and soften up, literally the corners of everything. And like that's very literal.
I guess this is just okay. Yeah, I guess this is probably just in like the broad, well, maybe it's live elements as well. But like, because this year we're introducing the Blast bots, lovable rogues from the Blast TV universe that act as narrators and guides throughout the major broadcast, making the whole experience a more positive, playful space. So that kind of, to me, is like Blast is gonna have like the word paperclip. What was the paperclip's name? That guy who was always helping people.
Clippy.
Was it Clippy?
I think it was Clippy.
So Blast is going to have a Clippy, but in the form of these bots.
They're already taking our jobs away, Chad. The AI, it's coming.
Because
enjoy a couple more years while it lasts, make bank, and then.
So am I an idiot? Is it about everything, or is it just I'm still a little bit.
Now that I read it right, it says this year Blast wants to redefine what a major could look like. So it's not just a major trophy, right?
Yeah.
But from initially maybe I wasn't paying as much attention, but yeah.
So if it's just visually, I can see a lot of things Jason's talking about.
I don't think they're going to change. I think it's just, as Jason pointed out, the look of the desk or maybe a little bit of the stage, something along those lines. But I don't really think they're going to change the way in which they broadcast, the major in a sense of.
I don't think they're going to change like the show flow and like show elements and everything like that. But
I think that would be actually very dangerous for them, considering, right? Like their show is actually pretty super solid. Like
they run a really tight ship.
Exactly, right. So why would you want to change that? Like that's your biggest strength. Why would you want to jeopardize your biggest strength?
They're in kind of like a cool position with this being the last. I know you're going to hate this, Chad, but like it being like the perception of this is going to be like the last CS:GO major and like sort of end of an era within the community. I think you're in the unique position that MLG was in when they did Columbus, the first major in North America, where like the event's already hyped. Like you can't fuck up the hype. So all you have to do is nail the product. Like don't make, minimize issues, no mistakes, just run a clean event. You don't have to do anything special. And so I'm really kind of curious with how Blast is going to handle that, because I know they probably want to do some special things too.
Well, that's the thing though. For Blast, I feel like their two biggest tests are coming up. Their biggest test is going to be the Challenger and the Legend stage, because playoffs, we know that they're going to kill it.
Playoffs are going to be awesome.
Their arena stuff is what we know. That's their bread and butter, and that's why they have the title right now of running some of the best events, because of how tight of a ship that broadcast runs at these arena events. That cool opening that they run at their fall finals, all that kind of jazz. It's these RMRs which they've outsourced some of it, right? They've outsourced the Asian and the Americas, right? I think. Well,
yes,
I don't know how.
Americas is outsourced. Yep.
And I'm pretty sure the one for Asia. Yeah, Asia and Americas. Yeah, they are. Yeah. So the only one they're doing in-house is the European one, which is still home court for them. But it's going to be them running 2 16-team events home court back-to-back. So that's like test number one. And I think that's where a lot of people are like slightly concerned to see what happens, because it is them taking a jump up in the level,
the scale,
just
of
the
events.
sheer volume, right? Yeah, and then after that is, as I mentioned, the challenger and the legend stages. And if we get through those without any dramas, like, you know, for the fact the playoffs is going to be fucking great. Like that's not even a conversation. I think that one's the safe one. You keep that in your pocket there. So they already have the icing on the cake. Now it's just about building that base. So this is why when you guys are talking about the last CS:GO major and they get that headline to lean back on here, if they do anything too crazy or too out of the box, it might I don't know, be jarring with all of that happening at one time. But I didn't hate the trophy. Like, I get it. It's not a traditional looking trophy. I did look at it and go, yeah, it does look like a Nickelodeon thing, right? But I don't know. What's a trophy meant to look like? What's the trophy meant to represent? Is the trophy meant to look good? And that's what because at the majors, it's not like we're chasing like a legacy trophy traditionally. We're chasing like a one-off trophy. We're not chasing something that will be returning unless it was like a Katowice or something like that had it in the past.
I think.
So what should the trophy be defined by?
Here's my biggest issue is I don't mind the way it looks at all. I think it's kind of cool in a way. I don't know, charming maybe. But I can you imagine like the trophy lift at the end of the event, like on the stage? Like that's my issue is I can't visualize a trophy lift. With this.
It's also
as long as it doesn't
purple,
fall
dude.
apart.
Like, why is it fucking purple? Like, why?
Well,
the
Twitch is
community
purple.
voted. Why the fuck does the community have a say in this shit? Like, I'm telling you, half of the people who voted for purple, they did it to troll, man. It's just like, you're just trolling. Like, it's just because it looks worse. And then you're like, well, I don't know if it looks worse because the slime is yellow and then the yellow one. I have no idea. And this is what I want. I want fucking Valve to step in, design a fucking trophy, and it's the same for every fucking major. And it's like the Stanley
that'd be
Cup,
cool.
and you have the names of the players who won, inscribed. Is that the word? Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Onto the trophy, and you have that, and then it helps to build the narratives. And sure, you can organize the tournament, but we make the fucking trophy so we can avoid this bullshit, so we can avoid Star Ladder and the trophy falling apart.
You want to give it the Stanley Cup treatment.
Exactly, man. Like something like that. You have the Lombardi, obviously, in the NFL, the NBA one. I mean, the trophies are also iconic. Football, you have the goddess. Like, it's fucking amazing, the trophy, right? And obviously, Blast goes all out with Valve goes all out with the trophy, you know?
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that idea because Valve are obviously not going to run the events, but they could they could be the ones to provide the legacy trophy, right? I'm trying to think of that.
And fucking Gabe gives it away. No more of this.
Let's
No
send it
more
email.
of
Does it
Counter-Strike
have to
being
be Gabe?
shunned.
Could it
and
be
Dota getting Gabe? We want Gabe.
No, we don't.
want
We don't
Gabe.
need Gabe.
No, I'm
Why don't we
kidding,
take?
I'm just trolling.
We
but-
can take one of the other devs.
Yeah,
They're
we
all
can-
lovely
we
people.
can- and they could even, swap every major.
Yeah, have a different dev. And to present the trophy is such and such lead sound designer for the
so funny.
AWP scope. Right? We could get that happening.
That'd be sweet.
And then, also the guy in charge of, let's say, visuals or gun recoil, and then he maybe gets a boo or he gets a cheer, depending on how good of a job the crowd thinks he did.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, what if we could the guy who cashes the checks that come on in to do with all the key openings?
Yeah.
They get that guy to come out.
I didn't want to
Hold
be that
that year's
guy.
check in front of him.
I didn't want to be that guy, but I also want to say, Chad, for your idea to make it like 2 weeks, and it's not as what was the word you said? Appealing for TOs sometimes, like to do the RMR part of it. Just give $1 million. Just give 1 million to the TO. Just sweeten the deal, man. Just like just sweeten the deal.
Here's the issue.
That's it. And I know
What's the money? What's the money for? Is the money just for running costs? Or is Valve paying the TO to run the event?
I guess a little bit of both, because
they're
not gonna get as much. If the RMR is prolonged and there's more bad teams, the viewership isn't going to be as good. The costs are higher, and whatever is just sweeten the deal a little bit. Just tiny a little bit. It's not
Toss
too
in a
much.
little bit more, a little extra cheddar.
Well, that's why, like, so if Valve pay for, like, if Valve pay for all the flights, right, and hotels, if Graham Pitt's listening, he'll let me know. But I'm pretty sure that I thought they did anyway.
They do.
So if they pay for all of that, I think outside of that, what they're starting to pay for goes into what the tournament organizer is planning to do. And I think, like, if I give a company that likes to spend money more money, they're just going to spend the money, right? Like, what kind of budget could you give Valve? Like, I could go up and go, yo, give me $1 billion. I run the best event you've ever seen. Like, what's the cap? Like,
I imagine
and how do you know you're not being
budget,
fucking
right?
fleeced?
Yeah, but it's not like, that is also up to in your pitch to say, maybe give some. I don't know. That's why I only threw the idea. It's kind of, I know that's not gonna happen. That's not how things really work. But that would be definitely a way, because they don't pay for talent. Like, they pay for players only and that stuff, but they don't pay for, travel and
Yeah, but that's
day
because
rates
I
of
honestly think that
talent.
they'd be fine, Yanko. They'd just be like, yo, it's fine. Just put the fucking GoTV IP out there and stream it without any
Exactly,
casters.
right.
Valve, they'd be like, just put the shit on the air. It's like, we don't have to pay for this shit. If people want to watch, they'll fucking watch.
Yeah, and
like,
you pitch us in a way where it's worth it for you, like, and that's it. We're thinking, if we're picking you guys have pitched this to us because it's worth it for you in some capacity. That doesn't have to mean you're making money off of this one event, but maybe it's whatever. Use it for promotion of, I don't know, right? Like, I understand that's why I'm saying, like, for them, it makes perfect sense. But wouldn't it
could
be
you
nice,
imagine,
Chad?
though? Yeah,
Just a
imagine how many.
cheeky
I
meal.
almost said the C word. Imagine how many of the fucking damn dogs would come out of the closet. And I don't actually mean they're dumb. I was going to say
Just
a
dogs.
bad. Yeah. Anyway, so people would come out of the closet to run Counter-Strike events if Valve like put like stickers or sprays or something in for the TO to run like an RMR or something. Like, if it was printing money, if there was some form of value behind it, every man and his dog would be coming out to run Counter-Strike events. They'd be fucking loving it.
Yeah.
They'd be ready for all of that shit. It is just a weird conundrum that but I think we'll develop. Like, that's, for me, I hope to one day, like, not be having Counter-Strike as a fixture in arenas as the spectacle. Like, to know that every Friday and Saturday night somewhere there's like an arena with 2 or 3, like a little smaller studio area or whatever, with 2,000 or 3,000 people packed in like a fucking UFC fight in the early days or something, all knowing and understanding and getting to watch in a fun viewing experience, which isn't like a concert. Like, that's what I want, where you feel like it's the competition, where the rawness of the land, like the people there, they get that feeling, they get that vibe, they understand the game enough. They're not being presented something on a stage to them, and they're not even looking at the people competing. They're looking at just the screens, and like, that's my dream. That's my dream for Counter-Strike, guys. Thanks for listening.
That's a beautiful dream.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about the way in which we could get voice lines from you guys into the game, but
That'll
it's like,
never happen.
but it's hard because you can't do it while the round is going on, because people could maybe abuse it, and you can't just mute audio because in matchmaking you have to communicate through the in-game thing, right? I guess, or maybe if you had a command to just mute those messages and still be able to use the mic potentially. So then I'm thinking maybe freeze time, but in freeze time you can't do it either because, well, you're also talking to figure stuff out in the round. You're explaining what you want to do if you're on the T side. So maybe it's just this thing where it's, how in CS2 now you have that screen where it's all 5 of you with your skins and everything.
Yeah.
So in that one, it's like it pops up one by one, and then when your character pops up, it says the line. Like Chad screaming, "This is sensational."
I see what you're doing there.
Okay.
I didn't tell you guys, I actually have a voice line in the game. I did the VO for Daryl, the agent skin. So
What?
Did you really?
the guy's Australian. No, the guy's Australian. The guy's an Aussie
Oh,
kid,
Jesus Christ. Did you really expect us to know like the backstory of the different models?
Well, he sounds Australian, man.
But did you actually do it, or you're trolling?
No, of course I'm trolling.
I don't know, mate. Like,
I don't know that. Maybe they had I don't know who did that. Probably a professional voice actor.
Chad, did
Or-
you
I don't-
tell
so
any
what
of
do you
the-
need to be? What do you need if you're a professional voice actor?
good understanding of the power and inflection of said voice to deliver.
Fuck off! I
Dude,
didn't think you were going to come up with that so fast.
It's really hard. When we did that animated thing that Harry scripted, that DHL one,
Yeah.
the Scorpion whatever
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the rock. And when we did that, we were sitting in TeamSpeak together trying to like actually do like readings. And Harry was like, "Oh, you know, that's what this," because we didn't know what the scenes look like. We only had the text, so like I could just sit there and read it and try and envision it myself. But we did it all together and like working out when to have the right inflection and shit. Yeah, it's really difficult. It's not fucking easy. But that it was fun doing that. I really enjoy. Harry's a little whiz kid. That fucking kid. All right, boys. What do we've been going for 2 hours and 26 minutes. What do we want to do?
A, RMR B now.
Okay, all right.
I got about 20 to 30 more minutes, and then I got to go feed daddy.
Yeah, understandable, mate. We get it. You got responsibilities.
I'll be your
now.
daddy, Chad, if you need me.
Can I just be? Well, you know, I'm.
Well,
I'm
listen,
my own,
if Jason only has like 20, 30 minutes, do we want to take some questions now then? Or
well, I think we can talk about this and like people can poke some questions because we can open up the chat now. We can open up the chat now. So we haven't had the chat open, or at least I haven't had the chat open, and I advised the two of you to keep the chat closed. So we could just do what we would normally do live, and people can listen if they want to listen, and they don't have to listen. So now with chat open, if people want to ask some questions and we can talk about them here, it can be related to anything we've spoken about now. Don't ask us a question like, such and such has just joined this team. What do you think? If they haven't played any officials, it's like, it's really hard to do stuff like that. Like that's like really difficult, those questions. But if we get some questions in here that are good ones, we can give them a go. IRL questions too. I'll answer some outside of Counter-Strike stuff if people want to chit chat about that. But let's just reflect on Group B while these questions pile up, and then we can bounce all over the place. Where are we at here?
Group B.
Okay.
All right, let me read these out. Heroic, Cloud9, Big, Ents, Vitality, NIP, Spirit, 9, G2, Eternal Fire, Astralis, Monty, iNation, Aurora, Fours, and 500. There's some fucking killers in there, man.
Most important things first. Yanko, what's iNation going to look like?
They've been boot camping for a while, man. Like they're going to come in as prepared as they can be, and big first game. I don't know if that's good or bad. You know, to be honest, like, if I have to be frank, I would be very surprised if they made it. This is like the biggest achievement for them in a long time. But ever since they did make it here, it seems like they got a boost in confidence, right? So they've been playing better in some of these tier 2, tier 3 tournaments. They're the lowest ranked team in that group, ranked 43 in the world as of right now. But man, you know how it is in the RMR. Anything can happen. They're going to need a good amount of luck if they're going to do it. I'm going to head in one of these days to their boot camp actually to see how it's going. I wouldn't expect them to go through. I'm hoping that, you know, they at least get a couple of wins on the board, something make it a little bit exciting and make one of these teams sweat their ass cheeks off.
Hell yeah. Well,
yeah, it's gonna.
You guys are right. This is the far more competitive group.
Yeah, like because when you're talking about like Aurora and Fours in the mix in this group, right? Like it's fucking crazy here. Eternal Fire, like even Monty have some names in. That's SDY's team, right? And they did that April Fool's joke. That was hilarious. But yeah, this is a very scary group from top to bottom. This is competitive Counter-Strike nonstop. I think iNation here, Yanko, are in a bit of in some fucking hot water, mate. It's not that I'm not believing. It's just that they're in there. They're in there like swimwear. That is rough. That is fucking rough.
Holy shit, this is fucking crazy.
I mean, there's not a single team in here that you can say like they're really, really crap, complete.
Holy shit!
They somehow lucked into this, right? Like all of these teams have had some decent results, some wins. Like on a good day, they can upset one of these teams. Like, yeah, probably. I mean, 500, iNation, Aurora. Those are like probably the three teams that you're kind of looking at and being, these are the three of the weakest teams. Monty maybe after that, but they've had some good results. The problem is, you have G2 and Astralis in this group that had to come from the open qualifier. Like that skews it a little bit.
Dude. Yeah, I think balanced out a little bit by like a team like NIP though. I know they're always in striking distance, but like they're not. I don't think they have a sound base. They could very easily lose.
Vitality Astralis right out of the gates is crazy as well on day one.
NIP Eternal Fire. Sure, that's not a map. That's not a match where I'm sitting here going, NIP have got this easily. That's fucking scary, man. That's a hard game.
I don't have any faith in NIP. Like, that team just feels off. I don't think they have like a good atmosphere in a sense. So I think it's just like one of those teams that team exists and it's made together and the players are playing and trying and they're doing it, but it just feels off. It feels wrong. Like, it doesn't feel like a true team to me. I don't know why.
No, I think a lot of people get that feeling with them at the moment, and I'm not sure if they'll grow into anything either. But we'll have to. The jury's still out on that. I don't know. Like, a Vitality, a shoe in here. This is a super important event for them. Pressure's been their biggest nemesis.
They've got
playing Astralis opening game.
They've got to be. That's a
they've gotta
crazy
be.
opening game. Yeah, I think they'll make it, but I think it's going to be close. I think they'll be one of the 2-2 teams.
That's my Furia Liquid. Like, they have to qualify.
Yeah,
like that's the same type of feeling.
Mentally, they have to qualify, but there's just that too big of a chance that they won't.
Well, and especially because pressure has been the problem for them, right?
Exactly.
Ever since this lineup was formed, really. And you go back, you look at that Ends game at Pro League playoffs, and it's just some really inexplicable decision making and individual play from some of the players on the team and throwing away rounds and whatnot. It's just like, really, you would have hoped for a lot more from them at this point in time. And also, I want to give a shout out to Hooksy, man. Like, he's been very opinionated on some of those casts, and he did mention something that I didn't really think about. Is like, okay, Art gets his criticism for his style of play and for Fury and everything, but what about Apex in Vitality? Where he's like also on some maps, he plays Yard on Nuke, right? Like, he has some of the more important positions like that. Ends game, like the way he was dying playing Gap on Vertigo, CT side, like that's just, I mean, really, really bad. It's pretty much probably what lost him the game. So at some point you're like, okay, you're doing a lot for this team in terms of leading, in-game leading and whatnot, but you need to rein it back a little bit when it comes to the play.
Yeah, I don't know. I always feel that there's a method to the madness with Vitality. That's kind of where I've been in this holding pattern. It's similar kind of thought as what I have with Liquid. It's competitive enough. Like, is it going to be consistently the world's best team? No, I don't see that. I don't see that as an option with these guys, like as the roster is right now, unless something drastically changes. But they can definitely be a competitive team who could strike and lift a trophy. So that's and I don't, it's not that I'm reasoning it away. It's just that I'm aware that not everybody, we're not going to have, well, at the moment, we don't have a dynasty team. We don't have an Astralis. We're not in that type of an era of Counter-Strike at the moment. So we're in a period where, and I think if you look at a lot of the trophies that have been won in the last spread, they have been very spread out. There haven't been too many repeat offenders as far as putting silverware in the cabinet goes. It's been quite patchy for everybody. So I don't know. I don't think Vitality will consistently be a number one team in the world, but they can be deadly. Right, so there's always that conundrum. I'm just reflecting on some of these questions here. Let me see what we got here. Someone's asking about Nexa. What's going on with Nexa? Does anyone know what's going on with Nexa?
It says he's out through the major cycle. So I'm assuming that means if they qualify, he comes back for the major.
I think the whole cycle, I guess. Yeah. So probably after Blast.
Like Taco.
Yeah.
Oh, he can't play in the major at all. Even, damn.
Well, I guess they could sub him in, but
you'd have to have him listed as the sub instead of your coach then, right? You have to put in the coach slot.
Yeah.
Jason, someone's asking, how is Purple Goo charming?
I don't know, man. I was really digging deep on that one. Yeah. Let's not go back to the trophy. God bless.
All right. Someone asked a question of, did we meet Gabe? No.
Did not meet Gabe. Chad, did you ever tell the story when they took us into the sound recording room that they did all the different footstep sounds in?
I was kind of on the peripheries talking to one of the devs when you guys were in that room.
We went into the little cubby and they had literally all the different ground material in the game.
To make the Foley noises.
Yeah, to get all the sounds recorded for what they need. It was fucking crazy.
Oh, damn. That's cool.
Yeah, sweet.
I didn't tell that story because I wasn't
I
in
remember
that
that.
room. So
You were chatting. That was the last day.
I was hanging back. I was being a chatty Cathy.
Yeah.
Okay. Someone wants to know how PGL got CS2 major so fast. Did they have a tender at least? I would assume, right? Because this separation, I had this conversation a bit already. But again, the CS2 CSGO separation that everyone's building as a great divide that Moses is parting the waters of. It's not that massive of a divide. I think that's been overblown. People thinking this is it's kind of just a transition. It's more of a name sake, right? Where that transition is happening, as well as obviously some things with the game. But I would imagine, at least from the rumors that we had heard, that PGL were probably going to be running the major for Perfect World at the end of this year. And now with the CS2 release, they're just going to push that until next year. That's kind of where I'm at with that whole scenario. I don't know how accurate that is.
That's the angle I took with it, since PGL does the English production for Perfect Worlds, that they were just given the next major because they're technically already on the next major.
Yeah. So that one explains itself away right there. Someone said, yeah?
There's one about the guy said he also sent an email about it, so I feel like we should really hone in on this one. Matthias is asking about rhyme or reason behind a half buy, because like the next time I see a 716 Yakindar get an M4 while 1712 NAF plays a 5-7 in I'm gonna lose my shit. I think the problem is it's not only looking at who's hot, like you said it yourself, like it's not based on the name, it's more on position. Like Kinder plays like Banana on Inferno, right? So he's gonna probably see a lot more action early on, or he has a set play he wants to do, and he's also a more aggressive sort of a player. So you give it to him.
Naf will have more chances to pick up guns in the round.
Yeah, something along those lines. But I will say that there's definitely a problem with teams where they spend too much money in half buys. And I hate seeing that, especially when they have a big lead. It's like, okay, you can afford a pistol, an armor, or a pistol and a couple of nades. You're up and the loss bonus is coming up, but don't buy so much where then you have to play, either with a weaker gun in the gun round, a FAMAS or something like that, or where you only have like one smoke and a flash, right? And you're playing B on Inferno. Like that's not worth it for you to have a deagle, an armor, and a smoke in a half buy. So
unless you're planning on saving that armor.
Exactly. Sometimes even on the T side, depending on the map and on the score, like if you're playing T side overpass, right? And you're up 14-8 or 14-9, but that's them winning a couple of rounds in a row already. Teams should consider doing a Glock eco simply to have money left even after the buy. Like let's say you buy full, you have everything you need, and you still have 1,200 in the back, or 800 even, or 1,000. Like that way, even if you lose without a plant, with max loss bonus, you can still buy AKs, right? So if the only thing you need, this is especially useful when you're at 15, right? Like, so if you only need a round or 2 rounds, give yourself as many full gun rounds as possible to win the game, right? Instead of banking on, a scout or a 1 dig or something like that. Sure, maybe sometimes get a little bit, or also if you're phase, then do it. But I think teams overspend in the half buys.
I do like some of these rounds though, where like we'll see one M4 get bought up, and maybe like a couple of people will buy like a pistol and Kevlar if they have money, right?
Yeah, hero
you
AKs.
Yeah, I like that on either side, because these players are so good that they first of all, they can capitalize off of understanding what a team's tendencies or setups are, right? And then if they're able to predict correctly and find that opening pick, well, then they understand what comes next. Oh, we've got this kill here. We know there's space to get this gun. We know what their likely reaction is going to be. You have a different set of like puzzle pieces that you're shifting at the very high level. And so like if somebody is able to find that impact with that rifle, then it can really determine a round. And look, VP is a good example. Now I have to say sorry for doing it the other way. VP is the example where like they do a lot of these one rifle and 4 of the players are on eco and just try and use that AK to find impact. But that's obviously more applicable when the economy's close, right? And you can make sure that you're continuing to find damage. Like if you buy in an AK and you get 2 kills with that AK, and sure, next round you have to rock, I don't know, a fucking Tech 9 or some shit like that. At least you kept their economy low. They had to drop some guns. Like you're keeping them at that breaking point. Because while each round of Counter-Strike is its own minute and 55 seconds, the common thread that takes us through the entire 15 rounds of the half is the economy. And we only reset that once, right? So many of the decisions are tied to that common thread. And if those decisions don't pay off, right? Like force buying consistently, like we talk about it as such a huge risk. And I reckon it happens maybe 1 out of 100 occasions where the CTs will have like lost rounds but have killed like 4 players on the other side, or have killed all 5 and like died to the bomb or like saved a gun or whatever, and then have gone for like lost pistol, killed everybody and saved a gun on the second but still lost the round, and then force bought again on the third. And like if you lose that as the CT on that third time force buy and you don't save, you're fucked. Like your whole game can go down the drain in that moment. But on the other side, your whole game can open up because you win that next round. Then they have to take a force. They only have some fucking P250s and shit. You win that. Now they're eco. Things are level, like 3-3. And that's the real difference in these strings of rounds, and why the risk decision making being outside of the norm needs to be highlighted so much in good and bad. Like, as you took this risk and it paid off, great. Now you've set yourself up. You took this risk and it failed. Now you could potentially be fucked. Right, like that, and those are some of the bigger keys outside of individual decision making in a match of Counter-Strike. What other questions we got coming in here? There've been some other bits and bobs. Novi, how are you feeling about CS2 now that you've got a couple of weeks of playtime? Do you feel like the progress with the full release? Do you feel good about the progress with the full? Yes and no. I maintain the position that I think we're going to head in the right direction. I don't know if we're heading there yet. Like, I feel like some of the bigger complaints that people have been having and things that like I've noticed, I don't even know how to describe the problem, let alone the fix. Like that clip that Adren put up with like the desync on the Deagle, I don't know if that was fixed. Like, I know they had something in the patch notes that had some, but I don't know if that's directly tied to it. The movement, I think people are bang on. The movement doesn't feel as responsive, but what is that a cause of? Is that like, where is that issue coming from? Like, if these things could be highlighted and demonstrated, I don't know if I like the fact that smokes last longer, even though you can nade them open. There's a lot of these things that the jury's out on that are probably small adjustments, but have a big impact. And I don't know where we start on finding or fixing them, because I'm not smart enough. I'm smart enough to know something's wrong. I'm not smart enough to know what the thing that's wrong is, let alone how to fix it.
I think the Adren thing is just we're going to have to trust the devs are going to fix that, because I wouldn't even know. There's probably some smart people who know how to fix something like that, but I imagine they don't know.
I'm curious how many bugs are being like reported as well, right? Like, because they put out the email to be able to send them stuff to. The patches there's been a couple, right? And the game's only been out for what, 2 weeks as of Wednesday? Yeah. So, yeah, it's going to be a process. Excuse me. Sorry for the sneeze. Yeah.
I'm enjoying it though. It's just it's at the point where it's kind of hard.
I can't play any more Dust 2.
I can't play any more matchmaking Dust 2s. It's not even fun. It's not even like playing Dust 2 anymore. It's just like a rush festival everywhere you look. Yeah,
like, and this is the thing. The way you play Dust 2 isn't running up meter into lower dark every round at like any decent level of Counter-Strike. Like this game is just like playing a public server at the moment. And because it's unranked, which is fine because it's just a beta, it's the disparity in the teammates it's not fun. Like, it's not. The only thing that you should be playing this for right now is to try and find what feels different and how can we make it feel the same. There should be no playing this game for any competitive pursuit. It should just be for the sheer curiosity of trying to find problems, solve problems, or understand the differences. That should be the only reason, because there's no, unless they're doing those 10-mans and stuff, which is also slightly defeat, like unless they're writing down all their bugs and shit, which they might be. I don't want to speak to them having or not. But yeah, fuck Dust 2, man. I can't play any more of that shit.
I like, would Mouse with Zywo instead of Torji be better than current Vitality? Yes, absolutely. Immeasurably more good. Like, without Zywo, that team is NIP / OG / yeah.
Wait, Yanko, are you sure?
What?
Are you certain that's the case?
I am absolutely positive.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I just had to check. I wasn't sure that
Davy's
you were certain
here. Shout
about
out
that.
to Davey. He said there's a small delay between your left click and when the gun shoots, Chad. I felt like something's
off.
Yeah, something's a little bit off, and without the proper net graph or anything, like I don't know if it's, the game and the ticks and the internet, or is it the shooting and the
Exactly, right?
performance? And that's bothering me, because I mean, without that, I can't give you feedback. I can just give you something's off, and you can't do anything with something's off.
I could sit there and I could make like videos directly comparing a lot of stuff, but I don't know. There has to be like a list of, these things we actively want to be different, because we know that they want the HUD to be different, right? Jason kind of helped solve that mystery right there. But then, okay, so what things do they want to be to be the same? Do they want the movement to be the same? Is it possible for the movement to be the same? Should we try and find ways to replicate that? Then we might need access back to a couple more console commands, because they got rid of get pause doesn't help with any of that, but they did get rid of get pause, which is real sad, man. It's real sad for all the observers out there.
Bring back some of them, like once the game is out, and maybe not everything is in place for those commands to be there. I know some of them are intentionally out, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. What do you think about coaches not being able to talk in RMR, even in timeouts? Which teams do you think will be affected the most?
They can talk in the RMR, can't they? They're just not allowed to be animated and stuff.
Just during timeouts.
What?
Yeah, that's actually the same way it is everywhere. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. The only difference is they're not allowed to show like any
like
they
high five, pat on the backs.
Coaches are basically been put in like a little playpen where you've been naughty, you use the coach bug, and now you're very limited. That's what I think about that. I think this is Daddy, aka Jason, who's just had a little kid take a shit all over the fucking carpet as a 3-year-old, should know better. And now he's had to go stay in the fucking playpen, mate, because you've fucking ruined me carpet.
Yeah, that's gonna suck.
Yeah, but I think that it is what it is. I don't think it's great for coaches.
No, it sucks for coaches, and I mean it sucks for us as well, because I mean that's just emotions taken out of the game, right? Like, it was awesome seeing the coaches like fucking stomping behind their teams.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an intense experience standing behind a team in a big game, a big tournament, and the emotions of it are fucking mental.
I was losing my shit, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially at the major. I remember the first major in London with MIBR, do that NIP game to qualify for the playoffs, like the third map. I was just, at that point, just whatever I can do to help, like, give the players just that little bit of extra oomph. Let's do it.
Yep.
This individual's asked this question several times, so we'll answer it. Persistence works around here, apparently. What do we think of lower brackets in playoffs? In terms of a playoff, like for a traditional arena, it's probably not going to be possible with the way things are structured now. If events were structured a little bit differently, if we had events go through stages and then only finding maybe the quarterfinals, the semifinals, maybe even just the semifinals and the grand final being in the arenas, and the rest of the games happy to be more of a studio environment or more of like a face-to-face type environment, or more of
fuck it. No playoff lower bracket. Fuck you. You get one chance in the playoffs. You get 2 chances in the groups. You get 1 chance in the playoffs. That's it. It's the playoffs. There's no double. It's single elimination. There's this
What
one
if there's
game,
no group
win or
stage?
lose.
What if it's just a playoff bracket? Or what if it's just a bracket?
Well,
what if the whole event is structured differently?
Well, that's the tournaments now, Chad. That's it. Like, the group is the bracket, and you have lower bracket. Like, that's Cologne. That's Katowice.
Yeah, you're kind of right.
So,
well, yeah.
I think it'd be kind of cool. I don't think it would work in any event we have now, but I don't
want FaZe to beat G2 in the opening game in the playoffs, right? And then for G2 to come back and beat them the second time, and they win the tournament because of it. Like, I don't want that. That's crap. That's dog shit wrapped into cat shit. It's different when FaZe beat them in groups and then they meet again in the playoffs and then G2 beats them. I mean, that's a bit unfortunate that it went that way, but it's different stages of the tournament, and you can obviously meet again at some point, whether it's even in the grand final. So, but I always hated that. I hated that as a viewer, as talent, as a competitor. Like, I played the same team twice in the same stage, but just because they beat me the correct time, they get way more than I do. Fuck off.
That's a fair criticism. That's fair.
What about where are we here? Someone is asking about what we think about the alcohol sponsor with Blast.
They have an alcohol sponsor?
I think what was it? Let me have a look. Part of me wants to say Smirnoff, but I don't think that's true.
I mean, I think it's awesome. personally.
Well, yeah, I think someone says like we have gambling sponsors, right? So it's not like Absolute.
Okay, that's sick.
Absolute
Oh, it's
vodka.
vodka.
Yeah. I Absolute vodka. They have Jameson as well. They have 3.
Oh, they have
Okay.
JMO as a sponsor? Hell yeah.
Is Ballantine's alcohol as well?
Yeah,
It is staying
it's
true.
pretty
Okay.
crappy alcohol, but
Okay. Well, they have those. They have
Jameson
those
is
3.
the best out of the 3. I'll
Yeah,
say
it
that,
is.
especially for a shot of Jameson.
Yeah, baby.
I think the thing is like there's certain stuff which holds a lot of things back. Like alcohol is something that a lot of people drink, a lot of people buy. It's a big industry, right? It's a lot of same as gambling.
But for me, man, like I don't know. I mean, obviously it's our industry and whatever, but for me, gambling is the worst vice. You know, I don't think anything can ruin you as much as
Well, like
gambling and also
alcoholics who also are gambling degenerates, right? Like
that's the combo. That's the
You
winner's
combine the
combo.
two. Okay.
But my point here is like the extremes of anything is bad, right? Like there's always going to be that end of the spectrum that is overdoing something or it's destructive and stuff like that. Like if you drink too much alcohol, right? You can die of alcohol poisoning, right? You can get like gangrene and shit in your feet. You can get fucked up from alcohol, or you can be like a degenerate gambler and you can rob your family members to gamble and try and get that feeling of what a win feels like. But the problems, like these vices, are where people find themselves. I think they would find themselves in something bad eventually, right? We can't kind of protect everybody from making shit decisions. We should just educate them that these things are very easy for the human brain to get addicted to or whatever. Like this does happen to people, and there are ways that you can get help, right?
I don't trust a person that doesn't have a single vice.
That's fair.
Everyone has
One
some weird
vice.
degen shit, right? Like
just
everyone
one,
has some weird
right? A
degen
person
shit.
that doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, doesn't do anything. They're like by the book from top to bottom, like that. Then they have like something inside that's, you know, that's really wrong. That's gonna come out sooner or later, man. Like I don't know.
Yeah, the
how to
genie out of the
describe
bottle,
it.
man.
Like everyone has to have something. Like I don't smoke. Like I've never tasted a cigarette in my life, but I drink. I like to have a drink, and that's all right. You know, I don't gamble, and that's my vice. Like alcohol is my vice. You know, and I try not to overdo it. I think that's getting better as I'm older. Jason can testify to that.
For sure.
But you know, like it's just one of those things. Like you need to have something to, you know, you've had like whatever shit day, this or that, and
Yeah, so
Just
it's
online.
not unusual though, right, Yanko? Like what we're seeing right here with this tradition, you'd see that in regular sports.
Oh
in,
hell yeah! They're some of the
like-
biggest advertisers and sponsors of traditional sports in America.
Right, so I don't see anything kind of weird or bad about this. So my thoughts about it is congratulations on getting some sponsors.
yeah, I just
And
wish-
these are good sponsors to have coming in as well. Like they can be interested, they can be creative, and I mean it's valuable for everyone in the scene. To be quite honest, just from that perspective too. And I mean we know it's going to be done as responsibly.
Well, we have like more like this is the thing, to buy alcohol, right? You need to have ID in all the places I'm come from to buy the alcohol.
We should get a beer
Obviously.
sponsor.
Well, the podcast,
Yeah.
yeah,
any
all right.
alcohol sponsor, man. Like, just, I mean, you see any of the live episodes we do? That's a treasure trove.
Yeah, that's
for that
true.
shit. But I think that's an easy way to sell a sponsorship. Like even if you're a TO, I know Blast was doing some of those post shows in doing spring group doing groups and all of that. Like we did, or we're kind of toying with it at Pro League, something along the lines. So you just do that, sponsored by Bud Light, and we're just Bud Lights on the table, and we're drinking Bud Lights, talking about Counter-Strike. Like that's so easy. It's also organic almost.
I do like a Bud Light.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
Or
right, Jason, you
Michelob-
said you had to get
Michelob.
going shortly.
Yeah, at some point I got to go relieve that.
Have we reached that time?
Yeah, we're about there.
All right, we've almost done 3 hours, so
Yeah,
Just
we're
give a
going on
shout
3
out.
hours.
Just give a shout out to the guy who said, "Can't wait for Nico to be introduced as the absolute player of the game." that's a good shout.
the purest
That's not
aim.
bad. That'd be great.
That's a good shout.
Triple filtered.
Oh dear. All right, let's sign off. I'm gonna quickly change some shit with the stream before we say goodbye. How do I get out of this?
All right. Well,
Boomer Birchall back at it.
let us know, guys, if you what you think about this episode. Like it, you didn't like it.
Yeah,
That's
we're
it,
experimenting.
pretty much. We're trying something different, you know.
Something
It's
new.
been a slow week.
All right, I'm going to stop the stream and then I'm
Haku.
going to turn it off. Goodbye, everybody.
GG's.
Bye. Oh wait, we were doing Audacity as well, or? I'm just kidding. I couldn't. The chat. I already gave him like a heart attack that one time. It would be too much. Yeah. All good.